Hello, everyone. We are back for the third time this year with the Aegis Esports Legends of Runeterra League. This time, we've got a little bit of a twist. My name is Hash, and I am joined here by the most broken card in the history of Legends of Runeterra. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Card Gamer, Red Pup Games player, and really excited to be casting this. Like Hash said, we have a bit of a twist this time on the Aegis event. Instead of seeing a lot of the teams like you would usually expect to see, your 17 ABG teams, maybe like a Cope team, you might see us in there, a Maru team. Instead of that, we have done a draft. We have picked 8 really great captains. They were really fun to have on the show and draft with last week, some really solid players. And they picked 3 people each from the community, some really strong players. And now they're about to throw down tonight. And I'm really excited.
Yeah, so as Card Gamer said, we had the draft last weekend. That was also streamed. If you guys haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend checking it out because it was hype. And we have gotten a very, very stacked roster of players. There's 32 of them, and they are out here to fight, and they are here for glory. So without further ado, let's just get into it. We're watching 4 sets tonight. What are we starting off with, Card Gamer?
Yeah, so we're watching 4 sets tonight. We're going to go through the entire league, and the first set of tonight is actually going to be Misfortune's Powder Monkeys versus Zoe Celestials. So for those of you who aren't as familiar with the teams, that's going to be our EU team, Zoe Celestials, with Pavalici, Robomaster, Maddie, and Never Walk Alone, going up against the Powder Monkeys, which is, I don't even know exactly how you would identify this team, but it's a bunch of cool guys you probably know. They got Monte Cristo. They got Lotus Reagan, who's a bit of a newer player, but the captain of the team and really solid. They got Y Rebellion, Ladder Warrior, and Majin Bey. Who doesn't know Majin?
Yeah, absolutely. You just dropped name after name, banger after banger. These are all very good players. For those of you who also don't know about how this format actually works, basically, there are lineups. 3 players from each team come together. Each one has a different lineup, and then depending on the schedule, one team will decide one fixture, and then the other team will decide the other 2. There's also some form of deck restriction where you can't repeat the same region combination or the same champion more than twice. Otherwise, it's just same old Legends of Runeterra. It's riot lock between these players after that, and whoever comes out on top. Let's move on to the deck stats, because we have some really, really interesting deck stats for this week. So, I think this is just what, 2020, Card Gamer?
Yeah, it's pretty much 2020. If you just block out the Janna and Nyla and you pretend that's Ezreal and TF there, this is just 2020. Block out Jax or and just put MF and Sejuani there. It's really just 2020. This meta feels really old school, really mid-rangey, and a lot of classic decks up there. Like you were saying, you got Scouts, you got Ashe, you got Shen J4. These are some real classic Runeterra decks. Getting on the board, playing for the board, trying to use really efficient combat tricks that are really powerful at just taking over a combat by themselves.
Can we talk a little bit about how Omen Hawk is the most popular card this week?
It blocks elusives. That card's broken.
Yeah. Whoever decided to buff that card. Anyway, So yeah, it's a very good description of the deck breakdown. We have a lot of mid-range this week, and we'll probably be casting a lot of mid-range subsequently, because remember, these deck stats are actually pretty reflective of the field, because the field isn't that big compared to usual Aegis League seasons. So yeah, let's just move on to the first set, and we can actually look at the decks that these players have brought.
Yeah, so moving on to our first player, we have Robomaster. So Robomaster has, starting off with the Ashe LeBlanc, one of the most brought decks. You're going to see it all over the place. And it's just trying to get on the board with really well-statted units, backed up by these really powerful freezes and pretty relatively cheap combat tricks that are really powerful for blowing out combat, creating a really massive board lead, and just snowballing the game out of control with that. You have cards like Incisive Tactician for the top end as well to really help cement those board leads and just end the game.
Yeah, it's also very interesting to point out the fact that Robomaster has opted for a bit of a Weapon Master heavier version. I know most people are actually just playing a full copy, full suite of Reckless Trifarian. No Blacksmith, especially after the nerf. That card never gets to be a reputation proc now, because it's always capped out at 4, and it's also just a little bit weaker power level wise. However, Robomaster opting for the stability, which is not something I hate, because honestly, if you run into mid-range lineups, Ashe LeBlanc is often going to be the ban for these. When Ashe LeBlanc gets left open, what is it playing against? It's playing against aggressive decks. And what is good against aggressive decks? Innovative Blacksmith. So there is some logic to that. And also, it allows you to play Glacial Saurian, which, if you ask some people, that's the best card in the game right now, right? So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Definitely a smart call. Just recognizing how lineups that are going to be actually playing into Ashe LeBlanc in a best-of-3 format are going to be trying to attack it and just trying to help mitigate those weaknesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to the next deck, because I think, Card Gamer, if I asked you to talk about this deck as much as possible, we would be here until next week.
Yeah, Annie Jin's my special interest. So you have to understand about Annie Jin is that in Standard, this is a 30-card deck. And you kind of get to put the last 10 cards in based on what you need the deck to be doing and what you want to be hitting in the meta. In this case, Robomaster says, I want to be going wide around people, and I want to be punishing people with stuns. So because of that, we have our 30 core cards, and we're playing this Witness Mana Soul package, which are kind of like the odd cards out that you normally wouldn't see. And it's just really to try and punish these mid-range decks who tend to play 1 card per turn. And the Witness has this thing in Annie Jin where it's awkward to flow without Mana Soul Student. So I really like the inclusion of playing these cards together to help each other out, make the deck function properly.
Yeah, and I mean, just from looking at the deck breakdown, Annie Jin is expected to be very well positioned to this kind of Aegis week, right? Because there's a lot of mid-range and a lot of decks that are on 1 unit per turn, and Annie Jin is a deck that very famously does not care about the board. It's gonna say, like, if you're gonna play like a few units per turn, okay, things get a little difficult, but if you're on 1 unit per turn, that's just getting stunned every turn, so my full swings apply a lot of pressure. And as you said, it makes a lot of sense that Robomaster is going for Mana Soul the Witness. Something I really like here is the Avenging Vastaya as well. It's something that you don't see in a lot of these Annie Jin lists, and I think it adds a lot of flexibility to your game plan. Also, just sometimes being able to protect your Jin. It's honestly a card I would play more than 1 copy of if it wasn't so mana taxing, so I'm really happy to see Robomaster playing it. I have a really important question for you, Card Gamer, though. How broken would your caster card be in this deck?
I made my caster card to make Jin tier 0, so I wanted Jin to have 33 cards in Standard. That's the dream.
Yeah, that would certainly help alleviate a lot of the deck's issues, which is also why, like, it's not a deck that is always at the top of the meta. Aggro traditionally doesn't end up being at the top of the meta, but Annie Jin in particular struggles with this, right? Because there is like a card quality issue the further you go down the list.
Yeah, most definitely. And moving on, talking about card quality, we have Shen Jarvan, which is a deck that's very strong this meta, but a deck that definitely tends to be lacking in the card quality department when you miss on the Shen.
I was actually speaking to Robomaster earlier today, right? And he was like, guys, how do I mulligan with Shen Jarvan, and how do you play the early turns? And I just replied by saying Shen 3 times. And he learned pretty quickly what that meant.
Yeah.
This deck is very good when it hits, but by hitting I basically mean Shen. Like, J4 has had a very big glow up and it's become one of the best champions in the standard environment. But what this deck can do with Shen versus what it could do without is like the difference between night and day. It's like you go outside and you are happy, or you go outside and you are sad, you know?
Yeah, I mean, for the same reason that the Ashe LeBlanc is so oppressive because of its freezes, Shen is trying to do a very similar thing with the barrier. The thing about the Shen deck is that there isn't really efficient ways to apply barrier without Shen, which is why it is so much more dependent on one card than Ashe LeBlanc may feel. But they're really trying to do a similar thing.
Yeah, that's very well said. And I mean, as far as the specific list that Robomaster is playing, I would say it's more or less standard for the most part. The one thing is there's only one copy of Moral Support, which is a card that most people I think run 3 of, because it's just 2 mana barrier, which is a breakpoint of mana that is very, very powerful. I understand not playing a full suite because I am guessing the idea is that when I have Shen, I'm already winning, and Shen is the only way I can proc support. You see the addition of Scholarly Pioneer, the Explorer that just came out in the most recent expansion for this region combination. And I'm a big fan of the card. It's got challenges, so it has its uses with barrier. But I also think with landmarks being prevalent, which is something we'll probably talk about a little more later on in the broadcast, it makes a lot of sense. And the deck, as you said, lacks high card quality, so something like Scholarly Pioneer is pretty easy to include in a deck like this.
Yeah, most definitely. All of the different uses of Scholarly Pioneer, both as a challenger unit, like a well-sided blocker, all of the different Explorer cards are really beneficial, and it's just a nice card to include as a one of. I think the last thing to mention about this deck, which is a little bit off from most other lists, is we're just on this 3 Spirits Refuge. Most lists are playing 2 of it, I believe, and just really trying to build this list so that when we have to play into these more aggressive strategies, we have all the tools we need to get our decks by.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I honestly, like, on a personal level, I feel really uncomfortable playing something like Shen J4 for a very big tournament, because I'm just really worried that there is a high reliance on Shen. But in a field like Aegis, I think it can make a lot of sense. Moving on to Robomaster's opponent, actually, we have White Rebellion, and it's Shen J4 once again. So thank you to production for making us talk about this deck even more. I want to die.
Yeah, so there's a couple differences in this list. The main differences you're going to notice is in the barrier ratioing. 5 barriers is about standard. Most lists are on 5. The way White Rebellion is doing it is instead 2 Refuge, 2 Riposte, and 1 Prismatic Barrier. Just valuing the Riposte to be a little bit better in the mid-range matchups or going for lethal, having reach in certain spots. And then the other thing is the one of Sign-In as opposed to the J3, just valuing the card advantage and the board buff instead of going taller on the champions.
You can make fun of me if you already mentioned this, but also there's a rally in this that isn't in the other list, right? Isn't that kind of big?
Oh yeah, the rally is kind of big. Yeah. It definitely affects how the deck can play in terms of being able to clock. Shen Jarvan tends to play out very grindy, but the addition of this one-off rally just gives it the ability to kind of end games on the spot, which is something the deck usually doesn't have access to.
Yeah, and I don't know, honestly, if these 2 decks played against each other, like if they played the Shen J4 mirror, I don't know who would be favored. I think I would be leaning White Rebellion based on like the Sign-In and the rally. But with the barriers, you can make the rally really redundant, and the Sign-In is obviously good, but it's just a one-off, right? Moving on, and before we talk about this list, we can also take this time to give a massive shout out to Runeterra AR for this layout. Make sure to scan the QR code if you guys want to import the decks yourselves on your clients. We have Jan and Nila, which is the big mammoth, the pillar, the deck that everyone is fearing, and what I expect will be the ban from Robomaster. Card Gamer, I know you have a lot to say about this deck. I'm listening.
Yeah, so I have a good bit to say about this deck. I feel like I'm going to have a bit more to say about the next deck in terms of ranting, but I mean, John and Nyla is very good. Right now, there's 2 flavors of John and Nyla going around. There's the Sunken Temple version, and then there's a version that isn't playing temples and is instead playing usually boats are a mix between boats and the Wizened Helmsman that this is playing for the top end.
I'm gonna stop you there. We call it Elefanti for the rest of the cast, please.
Okay, yeah, Elefante. Oh, apologies, Elefante. But this version in particular is high on the Temple and the Elefante, and it's really playing to just get by the first few turns, stabilize, maybe play a John if it has the tempo, and then just play this Temple on 5 and just start absolutely drowning its opponent in card advantage, kind of having any disregard for even fleeting cards and just going absolutely bonkers. Whereas the other version is a little bit more disciplined, a little bit more calculated, but it doesn't have quite as crazy explosive turns as this can have as the game just stalls on and on.
Yeah, I definitely agree that this deck is very, very explosive in comparison to the other version, but it does have its issues and it does have its weaknesses. Card Gamer has spoken a lot about this deck. Let's move on to the next deck because, as already previously implied, Card Gamer has a little bit more ranting to do about the next deck.
Yeah, so this we have Seraphine Ionia. In this case, we're playing Set as our second champion. And, I think this makes sense. We're in a mid-range meta. We want these bounce spells. Seraphine should be pretty effective versus this meta. Cool. Well and good. I think Temple is a bad card in this deck. And I will explain more if we get to see it. But I'll just leave you with that for now. Temple is not good in a Seraphine deck.
I will say I was gonna dunk a lot on the fact that this is a Seraphine Ionia list, but then I saw that there's 3 copies of Set, and I was like a little more content with it. But
yeah, but Set and Temple on 5. What are we doing?
Yeah, I mean I understand the concerns, but at least there's 3 sets. A lot of people are playing less.
Yeah,
some are using 0. So
yeah, Set good.
Yeah. All right, without further ado, let's move on to the next segment, which I think is going to be our predictions for this set, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
All right, so, Card Gamer, I'm backing the Zoe Celestials because they're my EU boys. Why are you backing them?
Jin.
I understand. God damn it. Okay, yeah, so both of us think the Zoe Celestials is going to win. I have a very reasonable reason because they're my boys. He doesn't. He betrayed his people. He's from NA. He should be backing them anyway. We see Hirsch from production. He is being loyal to the cause and sticking with his men. But Card Gamer man, what do you have to say for yourself?
Hey, look, Jin to win. I can't wait for Eternal when I have 40 cards in my deck. Oh boy, I'm so excited.
Yeah, this man's Card Gamer's a type of guy. When a fashion comes out, he's looking forward to 2 months later, not 1 month. Anyway, all right, let's talk about bans a little bit. I mean, I did mention a little bit during going through the decks that I think Robomaster is going to be banning Jananila. Honestly, it's a little close-ish, I suppose, between Jananila and Karma Seraphine set, but I think it still goes to Jananila just because of power level, because in terms of tables, they're pretty similar into what Robo's decks are, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I think Jana Nyla is just going to be a little bit more problematic in general, especially in the type of manner where this Jana Nyla deck is just built up with so much of the spot removal that becomes really annoying to deal with as an Ashe player or a Jin player. For the side of Y Rebellion, I would be thinking we're leaning on banning Shenjie 4 or Jin, just kind of depending on what we're scared of in
from my Rebellion side, I think if we understand that Jananila is getting banned, we ban Jin. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a fair assessment. I think that playing the Shen mirror is fine, and I think that Seraphine is pretty solid into both of the other decks.
Alright, apparently we are geniuses, or the players have access to this voice call.
Mm-hmm. I would like to believe that we're geniuses, but only time can tell.
Yeah, looking forward to this to these games. Overall, I would say Y Rebellion is favored in this set just because Karma set Seraphine has a pretty good amount of tools into Ash LeBlanc and Shin J4. However, Shin J4 will struggle a little bit, but Ash LeBlanc has the tools to sometimes get around these PNZ control decks because of combat tricks like Sky Splitter, cards like Incisive Tactician, like a quick rally, catching them off guard. Sometimes maybe Wild Rebellion is going to be priced into playing Sunken Temple on 5, and Card Gamer is going to have a blast making fun of that and just watching Robo win. Also, the other thing is, if we hit the Shin J4 Ash LeBlanc matchup, that matchup is actually good for Shin J4, which is not usual because Shin J4 is Demacia.
Yeah, it'll certainly be interesting. The Shin J4 is definitely the most problematic deck for Y Rebellion, and when you're in that position, you should be feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it was the deck this week for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm. I think we have our player names backwards, but we are getting into game one. Starting off, we have a pretty conservative Mole on the side of Seraphine. Go ahead and just deciding to keep a bunch of units to play, get on the board. Stagehand really effective at shutting down development. Seraphine, Wincon can be an effective blocker. Pure Professional just gets on the board really well. Can either be a combo tool later with the coin or just a really powerful way to gum up the board and progress Seraphine.
Yeah, that's my face. That's not the game.
That's true. I think we are fixing the sides of the players are on, getting back into game. Nothing's really going to happen these first two turns. I wouldn't worry too much. There's going to be like an Omen Hawk coming down, maybe like a 5-1. If the 5-1 comes down, it'll get shot. If like nothing happens on turn 2, maybe a Seraphine comes down. It'll happen to like turn 3, you know? Pure Professional come down. Life will be good.
Basically,
I can't see the game either. I'm just kind of snowballing.
Basically, in dummy terms, it's going to be a game of let's see how well the Ash LeBlanc player can apply pressure, because if they can't, the control deck will just run away with the game.
Mm-hmm. And getting back into the game now, we can see the Ash LeBlanc deck is, unbeknownst to them, applying a lot of pressure because we do not have a Mystic Shot in hand.
Yeah, and even if we did, there's an Elixir of Iron that Robomaster just top decked, so it's a good spot to be in for sure. Low-key, this single combat might be a huge hit down the line, just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, the single combat will be really interesting to see how it can play off later. Definitely Seraphine has this ability to hit, on top of just hitting like powerful spells that you would usually have access to that are good, just these wacky spells that you wouldn't expect, they just open up really powerful lines later in the game that you just can almost pretty much not even play around realistically.
All right, and we see this early stage hand going on the 5-1, and I mean, I think this... honestly, I don't know what I think. Card Gamer, yeah, you take the wheel here. Like, what are your thoughts on the stage hand? Like, my instinct tells me that there might be a spot in the mid game where it's doing more, because here, like, Robomaster still gets to us. He gets to swing. And in my head, there are spots in the future where when we play the stage hand, even though Seraphine would die this turn when this happens, when we don't play it, there is just no attack for Robomaster on a future turn, and maybe that's better. I'm not sure, though.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like you were kind of talking about, Ash, it depends on like what you value and how you're trying to get value out of the stage hand. In this case, we're saying we really wanted the stagehand to try and protect the Seraphine, and we were also happy to try and get value out of this single combat. Because we were talking about cards having interesting applications, having really powerful blowout situations. That's true, but sometimes you get some really stinky cards that you just can't really play. And the logic of keeping the Seraphine alive, trying to remove a LeBlanc, trying to get rid of an awkward card, I can definitely get behind that, because it also progresses your Seraphine level up as well, which is something I feel like people don't necessarily pay attention to enough in Seraphine decks, is the pace of the Seraphine level.
Yeah, definitely agree. The one thing I would criticize maybe is the fact that like as a control player playing into Ash LeBlanc, one of the things that you have a big advantage with is the fact that the freezes are made redundant, and we went for a line that made Brittle get a lot of value. Not sure how good that is short term, but long term it might still prove to be fine because of this, because of how much merit this line had in terms of progressing Seraphine's level up.
Mm-hmm. I understand what you're saying, but if you think about how this matchup plays out, the Brittle Steel should always get value off of the set as well, because the set's probably going to become a 4-1. at some point in the near future, assuming we're going to try and use them to stabilize the board.
Yeah, that's also very fair. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think it's valid. Also, we see this really depressing Saurian come down, and this was something I was kind of alluding to. Like, it is true, Rebel Master is playing 3 Omen Hawk, 2 Blacksmith, 1 Combat Cook, so that's 6 units to have before playing Saurian on turn 5. That is not a lot. And sometimes you're going to just be forced to do this, which doesn't feel great. Yeah, it's probably still fine just because we can still recoup value with the Trifarian Assessor in our hand. But as Robomaster, if I was like playing right now, I would be feeling pretty bad about my position.
Yeah, this is a spot where both players feel really bad, but really only one player should feel bad. Well, these draws kind of do change a good bit. Having access to these, the Palm and the Recall is really powerful in terms of being able to stop the pressure, but there's a very important thing that you always need to be considering as a Spells player, as an Ionia player, which is not just how am I going to stop the attack, but how am I going to have the mana to actually present my win con. Because in Ionia, a lot of the times, you're not actually removing what your opponent is doing, you're just delaying them, and you have to find your opening.
Yeah, that's a very good way of describing it. And I'm a big fan of just pointing this Mystic on the LeBlanc and not trying to save our Seraphim with a tag out or something, because I do believe that like with set we will get to stabilize, and then also this tag out can prove to be more useful down the line at a different spot. Which turn this is turn 5. So next turn, yeah, so next time we do get to just play the set, and we also have deny backup for a Bloody Business or something like that. So it's not awful. I will say, if Robomaster has a Trifarian, like if the Trifarian Assessor draws into Incisive Tactician, I think Robomaster might be able to squeeze out a win before turn 10, but that's like a really tight clock.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely tight in terms of Robo being able to pull out a win, but if you look at this hand of Y Rebellion, it is definitely a bit clunky in its ability to get to turn 10. And if you look at the hand as well, we're not actually going to be able to enable a Seraphine properly in this hand while also like dealing with the pressure that the opponent has and drawing another Seraphine. So we're kind of on this Karma game plan. And we really need these this Deny and then these 2 Ionia stall spells to really buy us a lot of time this game.
Yeah, like honestly, like this Bloody Business, it sucks to deny, but the deny is obviously forced. There's not much you can do about it here. And I also think pulling the LeBlanc is probably forced. We go for Saurian instead. Are we playing around? What are we playing? Well, why are we removing the Saurian? Trying to think. Over LeBlanc, I mean.
I guess it's just the idea that like we can chump out LeBlanc easier. The mana where it's saying maybe doesn't matter, where rather than have a second sigil rather than like replaying a LeBlanc because of like how cheap it is to deal. There's a few reasons.
It's also to be fair, it is valid that like if you just go after this LeBlanc and Robomaster plays a second LeBlanc, you just give them a ton of value and you're like really depressed. But I can see an argument for just saying like LeBlanc has like a real effect when she's flipped, and this mirror image actually does apply a decent amount of meaningful pressure into us, so we want to get rid of her. Looking at Robomaster's hand and how the rest of this game is gonna play out, he's gonna be swarming, like he's almost gonna turn into a bit of a Jax Orin style deck for the next few turns, right?
Yeah, that's really what the goal is. He might even go for an Ashe this turn just because of the threat of being able to go for this really powerful Ashe combo turn with the following turn with the Mirror Image. There is one thing worth noting though with the Mirror Image, which is this card is very weak into stuns and recalls, especially if you use it pre-attack and not on like a Tactician.
I'm not a fan of playing Ashe here. I think this is the turn to play Assessor. Because like we need to find Tactician before our next token, right?
I think that makes sense. I think you could also no. I think it has to be Assessor. I think going for the Saurian is too greedy, probably, in terms of how you have to pressure. But also, if you're on Robo side, they are 3 Seraphine, 1 Karma deck, and they have not been playing spells at the right pace for the Seraphine to be a threat. So I can understand the idea of wanting to play Saurian and buff up your deck first.
Yeah, timing just gets a little suspect here if the Karma gets to flip before we get to rally. But to be honest, also, like, another thing that's worth noting is that, like, Karma flip is very, very powerful. And some people in chat might get mad at me for saying this. It's not an instant win. Like, Robomaster is still maybe able to create a game state where Karma flips, and on the next action, you're still able to squeeze in a lethal somehow.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely the case, especially because when you look at things, that this Karma is on the evens attack circuit, right?
Oh, wow, whoa. Okay, so we saw a Pong, which was really good for Robo, because then the unit that gets mirror imaged doesn't get stunned. And then we also drew a Tactician off of the second Saurian that we got.
Yeah, that was insane.
This was an insane turn, right? Like, this might have swung the game, right? Like, on its own.
I don't think there's realistically a way for Y Rebellion to come back from this position. There's just so much damage on the board. Your set is going to die. There's a rally next turn. Or
yeah,
the turn after. It's just.
No, I'm expecting the rally to be next turn. I don't see a way out here. Like, it's just too much. Like, too many blocks are being forced. That's also something else that LeBlanc has, where like every attacker is very meaningful because it's 5 damage. So like 3 things connecting is lethal, which means that there is a critical mass of blockers that Y Rebellion needs to have.
All the blocks are forced and none of the blocks are easy, and it makes things very taxing, especially on a deck like Seraphine, where including your champions, you're playing like 15 units.
Yeah, it's a very low amount of units, and then also like we only have 3 mana here, which means we basically have nothing here. Yeah, this is a very rough spot. I would say like maybe without Tactician and Robo's hand, you can still get there somehow. Honestly, even without the Tactician, it might be a little hard. But with it, I feel like the game is almost a wrap.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was correct. Nah, it wasn't correct. Yeah, this is just a very rough spot for Y Rebellion.
Mm-hmm. Just getting punished really hard for wanting to play the pawn pre-combat to try to alleviate that pressure. Just saying, like, I can be okay if you play the mirror image, not on a Tactician or not on an Ashe. But just so much pressure coming in from these Saurians.
Yeah, and we see the recall for Set here. That would require me to understand this. I would require to see like how far Set is in his level of progression. But I'm assuming we're trying to go for a showstopper with this formula next turn. Do we even have the mana for that though?
So next turn is turn 8, right? So we have 9 mana. I don't think we can.
All right, we can see. And here they are blessed. They are blessed for giving us this information. Thank you so much, guys.
Yes, thank you, production. So we can flip Set this turn, but leveling Set doesn't seem very realistic. We have 1 coin, so that's going to keep us at 4 mana. If we did,
we could have gone like place your bets, get a coin that's 3, play that coin. Yeah. So that's mana. Play the Set. I think. Okay, yeah, we couldn't flip Set because we didn't have a way to finish them. Like, we could flip Set, but we couldn't get the showstopper. Unless we have a 1 mana card in our deck, which I don't know if we do.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
So we see this Set come down. Also, Robo's drawing like a genius, like a god, man. Like this bloody business to tax even more responses from Y Rebellion, plus also still having the mana to do that with the Tactician. Like, this is just lethal this turn, right? Regardless of this deny.
Just EU draws are too powerful. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, we are the superior region for a reason, card gamer. Take notes.
I put you guys in my prediction for a reason, alright?
Nah, you said Jin, and Jin got banned, loser.
Yeah, and you're still winning. Interesting.
Yeah, your point.
I had the right prediction.
No, but for the wrong reason, man. Come on, this is... you know this is wrong.
It's results-based analysis, Ash.
Yeah, my favorite type. Alright, so Robomaster taking game 1. And in a very commanding fashion, we also saw the Saurian put in a lot of work. To be fair, there was an assessor. Could have recouped the value through that. But the Saurian applied just a little bit more pressure, which might have mattered. And honestly, it was a good watch. I always like to see Seraphine lose, but I also pretty sad for White Rebellion because he is supposed to be favored in the set.
Yeah, losing against the Ashe is really, really painful because Jarvan is definitely the deck that was trickier for you to get through. Like, regardless of what we even think about the set versus Jarvan Shen matchup, you're playing a 50 as opposed to what should be a favored matchup of Shen into Ashe. So definitely on the back foot now for White Rebellion.
Card gamer, that is both sets.
It's here. It's here.
All right. How much are you willing to bet that we're updrafting one of these cards?
Yeah. All right. So let me explain to you, chat, what's about to happen. We're gonna get around to turn 5. We're gonna have the attack token. We're gonna have to make a decision on if we play Set or Sunken Temple. If we play Sunken Temple, we didn't play Set and get to use them for like an attack token, which really is awful. If we play Set, then our Sunken Temple is coming in late, and it's not going to get the value we need from it by the time that like our opponent's trying to threaten us, and we need to have our cards be online. And then also, if we don't have a Janna, like these cards aren't reliably getting discounted. So anyways, play Bar. Okay, back to the game. It's a pretty reasonable curve from Robomaster. Burning a little bit of mana on turn 3 is a bit unfortunate. Not having the Shen is a bit unfortunate, but being able to play this barrier unit onto the Broadwing, protecting it, giving the 3-1 a barrier, and really applying a lot of pressure is going to be really powerful on this token. Definitely a bit of a clunky hand on the side of White Rebellion, but getting to Formula on the last turn is nice in terms of progressing Seraphine and all that. And just going double 2-drop, I think, makes a lot of sense this turn.
Yeah, one thing I would like to note, and I think you know exactly what I'm about to say, there is a certain lack of a certain card in Robomaster's hand that I think is also maybe controversially the most important card in the entire deck.
Yeah, that Shen guy is kind of important and pretty unfortunate here that our attack is getting shut down. But I think if you see a Sun get used like this, you're not too upset at the end of the day as a Demacia player, especially because this is their one like stagehand type stun. Yeah,
we see the stagehand putting in work, man. I'm honestly a fan of including cards like stagehand in these kinds of decks. Like it allows for these decks, like these Ionian control decks, to get on the board in a way that they don't usually have access to, and it's basically a better palm when your opponent develops, right? Which is just very good.
All right, but Hash, what 5 cost card are we playing this turn?
Thinking about.
Okay.
I was leaning Set.
Yeah, I think you have to play Set, but like it's gonna be so miserable to play Temple next turn, because if we play Temple next turn, like we can't play tag out on their guy, so then we're like tagging out our guy and then we're templing it away, and then it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah. This play pattern makes sense. Robo's just gonna keep applying pressure with this 3-1, which is, by the way, like a really, really strong card in this kind of matchup. Just because like it taxes, like it's either damage or it just taxes more resources from an Ionian deck, and like the Ionian decks are really clunky, so dealing with a 2-mana card is usually bad in terms of like mana trades. And as you also said, like Ionian decks don't usually get to remove units, they just get to stall them out. So this 3-1 always gets to come back. Obviously with Showstopper this is an exception, but this is only turn 5, so it's like a ways down the road.
You also tend to get a lot of info when you play a card like this 3-1 into a deck that has a bit of spot removal, because it's generally a high priority card for your opponent to try and throw removal at certain key timings, like after you've attacked or after they've attacked. And when they don't do that, you get a bit of a hand read on like, oh, they don't have Mystic Shot.
I low-key hate this J4 card, man. Why can't you just choose to not use it?
Yeah, you want to be able to play barriers this turn, but I think the Jarvan isn't that bad at the end of the day. We're trying to remove this. This set is a problem card, and the way it attacks your opponent mana with how they want to try and progress their game plan with the Temple is definitely useful.
We were definitely supposed to pull the other way around, though, right? Like 100%.
To remove the set? Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Like there's more stuns and recalls in this than there is removal, right? Oh, and we see from production that Mati24 Mayo, who was actually Zoe Celestial's first pick choice, I believe, for the set, has 2 odd Monte Cristo from the Powder Monkeys. So Zoe Celestials are up 1-0 overall. So if Robomaster gets to finish off the set with a win, that means that they will be proceeding with a win in this overall match between these two teams.
Okay, but imagine if we played Bar here and then we could play like cards still. And we didn't get rid of our entire hand that had like a recall.
I mean, I don't think Sunken Temple. I don't think Sunken Temple is awful here, to be fair, right?
Just wait until we don't. Just wait until we do not get a card that lets us deal with like Jarvan or anything. I'm ready.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, the Stumple is getting down and it's doing the thing it's supposed to do. There you go, card giver. Come on, man. You always have faith in your deck. You need to always have faith in your deck. Let's see, there's a tag.
He just drew his entire hand back. Okay, I see. The issue is I'm just not as talented.
Yeah, I would definitely like. We've done the math on this, but I think hitting 4 discounts immediately is above average for sure. Honestly, this might have been like, again, I don't know how far this set is, but we might be able to flip it. Okay, thank you for protection. They already knew what I was getting at. So we do actually have Showstopper this turn. If we go place your bets, coin. I believe so. Yeah. So place your bets, coin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have Showstopper this turn if we choose to opt for it.
Mm-hmm. And this is a line that does enable it. I don't know if it's even necessarily correct. I don't think it is likely correct to go for Showstopper this turn just because of how so many things have barrier and you want the Showstopper to clear out these X ones. But the fact we're going to be flipping set and setting up a coin to get the Showstopper next turn is going to do a lot to stabilize this game in the favor of Wire Rebellion.
Yep, I mean, I think it's fair to say that the Showstopper does a better job next turn. I guess the question is like, how consistently are you updrafting into a hand that's going to be able to activate Showstopper for you? I'm guessing the odds are pretty good, but there is a chance that doesn't work out, right?
Mm-hmm. That is fair. The updrafts can definitely mess things up, but you do have pretty high odds. The fact that you lose the coin does mean you have to go into the next turn with 3 mana, though. And it does make some sense in that regard of just really trying to make sure everything works out, to just go ahead, do it this turn, and, make sure everything's nice and clean. Remove the big 8/6, which is really one of the more problematic cards on this board as opposed to the 3 ones.
Yeah, as far as the amount of pressure that Robomaster is applying, I don't feel like there is that much. Like, I don't feel that threatened if I was White Rebellion right now. Like, you get a few easy chumps, and then Set's gonna clean the board out, as we said previously. Ixala just makes a lot of sense to develop here because you just want to block out your opponent's units. And yeah, like without, I mean, even a rally here wouldn't really do that much, right? Because like 2 units are stunned, and we don't really have access to cheap battery.
The real thing here is just making sure you don't randomly die to like Shen Spell.
Yeah, that's fair. Shen Spell is definitely the card that like is the most threatening in this position. You gotta make sure to play around it. Alright, the Robomaster doesn't represent it, so he's just doing this. You just block, and it's a completely fine position here. And from this point onward, I would expect White Rebellion to be able to take control over the game. We see this updraft going in again. Let's see what cards we draw. Alright, we drew place your bets, so yeah, we're just completely chilling, right? Like it's... Yeah, we definitely have Showstopper this turn, and this hand's just very, very good. We're gonna be able to like make the Showstopper matter a little bit less by just giving barrier to one of our units when it happens, and then like the 3-1 stay alive. But I don't think that actually ends up mattering too much because Set is just gonna take control of the board in such an effective manner.
Yeah, depending how you should set up the showstopper as well, you also may have the ability to combine it with a riff, right? And then when you do that, it actually just removes the barrier of all the 3-1s, and it'll make sure that resolves.
Yeah, and we just start here by like trying to threaten Shen, and honestly, Robomaster might be forced to just barrier here, which isn't something he's very happy doing.
No, definitely not where you want to be, but looking at the hand, having 4 of your 5 barrier effects in hand, and having this Shen boat on board, it definitely makes sense to throw one out here.
Yeah.
And seeing the Shen's 3 out of 5, this will flip Shen, the barrier here. It will make this 1-2 unethically big.
Yes, this 1-2 is unethically big in this matchup right now. Yeah, but I would be a lot more scared if it actually mattered, you know?
Yeah. It doesn't really matter right now. That is definitely the case.
Do you go for the caustic riff here?
I guess the idea is we're trying to set up the board to die to showstopper, including Shen. I understand the idea, but with a hand with this many barriers, not going to be too sad on the side of Robomaster, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the big picture, in the grand scheme of things, White Rebellion is still in complete control, but this showstopper is going to be a little worse than he expects it to be, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you look at the spot, I think pretty clearly what's going to happen is, oh, looks like we misclicked. Even if we didn't misclick, Robomaster just isn't surrendering because there's technically a chance, and this is a tournament game, and if you're on ladder, like, you've been out of this game a couple minutes ago.
Yeah, definitely. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, well, yeah, there's just no way out. It's like, there's this term, it's called garbage time. You familiar with it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's where we are right now.
Just when nothing really matters, we're kind of just waiting for the game to actually reach its conclusion, but the game's pretty much decided. Like, White Rebellion's at 90% plus to win right here. It's just about, actually winning the game. And with Karma here, it sounds like we're gonna do it right about now.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, we got J4 against Ionia. It's gonna work.
Cool Jarvan, we're gonna recall him, we're gonna play a Karma, we're gonna have Nopify backup. They can't do anything. If they try and do it, we Nopify, and then next turn we just end the game. With Karma set.
Robo, for the love of God, can you please just FF to this Karma? Make my life easy. Please. Please. Come on.
You can
FF.
do it.
FF! Yeah. Okay, we updrafted second temple, a sight for card gamer's eyes.
Yeah.
Alright, we're going for showstopper, right? Are we not? Okay, we are. Wait, hold on. No, it was fine. I was thinking we can maybe like bounce our own set and then have double showstopper, but like that's not possible because we're 1 coin short.
Yeah, I don't think it really matters what we do at this point. Just putting the showstopper back in the deck for later.
Okay, nah, I respect that.
That's so base.
I respect it. Okay. So, let's see. Is Robo still gonna like keep going, or are we just gonna see a scoop? Okay, mixologist. Let's see.
No. This is good. The longer this game goes on, the more time I have to prepare my Reddit thread about why we need to nerf Karma again.
Why is it always Reddit, man? Oh God. Why are we like gonna see 2 more turns of this card gamer?
We're just hanging out, So, Ash, what did you have for dinner tonight? Return of the Shawdox banter.
Yeah. I was literally just about to say, when you said we're just hanging out, I was gonna go to dinner and lunch. What did I have for lunch? Do you know Nando's?
Yeah. I've never had it, but I know of it.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. And then I had some Indian food for dinner. What about you?
I just had some eggs on toast for lunch. I made some chicken rice for dinner. I'm eating healthy. But Nando's sounds good. I've never had it. All I know is like cheeky Nando's. That's all I know.
Oh God! Please never say that. Please never say that ever again. I don't know how many of our British watchers are awake right now, but if they heard that, they would probably feel a little bit of pain like deep inside.
Good. I'm glad.
All right. Yeah, I was gonna default back to talking about the game, but my God, there's actually
There's nothing happening. We're just here.
Honestly, if anything, I pay my respects to Robo. Is this deny gonna make him FF? Please just FF. For the love of God. Ay. Why?
Like,
this is caster jail. This is what it's like.
Do you think he's like doing us a service by not surrendering? Do you think he's like, yeah, this is what the people want. They want to see this.
Are we gonna updraft the showstopper again? Okay, no.
That's our burn, please.
Okay. The open attack is literally lethal, Robo. Can we FF? Alright, there's a Shen emote. Are we gonna... No, we're still playing for disconnect. We're still doing it. Come on. Please. Finish him.
Okay, surely we end the game this turn. There's like 3 lethals available.
Alright, come on. Alright, there we go.
Okay, so anyways, onto the Shen J4 mirror. So, Ash, as a board-based player yourself, how do you win the Shen J4 mirror?
You draw Shen, and the other player doesn't draw Shen.
Okay, but what happens when both players draw Shen, or neither player draws Shen?
Draw J4.
Okay, I see. Alright.
No, like on a serious note, like you could so like here's the thing, right? Shen is really important because it allows you to like swing pretty offensively without like having to use your combat tricks and barriers to win in combat, because he inherently gives you a barrier on the board. When both players have Shen, it usually becomes this game of like who gets to run out of barriers first. When neither player draws Shen, J4 makes the difference, because J4 in Demacia mirrors is very, very strong, because often it goes to attrition, kind of, where it's like J4 just keeps taxing unit after unit, especially considering in Shen J4, the ability to flip Jarvan before he comes down is like very, very easy. And another thing also worth mentioning is the evens token is huge.
Why Rebellion paid Riot Games for this one, huh? Well,
Yeah,
we'll find out. We'll find out if he draws Shen in time.
Yeah, this hand's just missing Shen. This hand's straight up just missing Shen. Robo has the better hand right now because there's a Shen in it. But,
One
like,
Shen has entered the game.
Yeah, one Shen has entered the game. Both of these guys have the 3-1s. Like, there is a potential that this game gets dragged out very, very, very long, because like neither of these decks have a way to get over each other. You just have to play the board until someone stops. We spoke about this a little bit when we were looking at decks in this mirror. Based on their differences in the lists, why Rebellion should be slightly favored. We see on production side though, Never Walk Alone, the hero from last season of Aegis, if you guys remember that, has defeated LTS Vegan, the captain of the Misfortunes Pounder Monkeys, 2-1. So, irrespective of the result of the set, Zoe Celestials are going to be starting off their season with a win.
Definitely a big win for them. And Hash, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that this game score can matter for this game in terms of how things fall at the end of the season.
Yeah, with tiebreakers and whatnot, game score is like a part of the calculations. But obviously, the most upfront and like priority value is the winner of the entire fixture between the two teams. And as far as this fixture is concerned, Zoe Celestial have won it. Doesn't mean that like Robomaster isn't interested in winning anymore. If anything, he might have just heard that his team won in chat or something in another like his team's Discord server or whatever, and it might make him play like better because he's more relaxed.
Yeah, definitely a possibility. He's relieved after that last game that he doesn't have to worry anymore, and the embarrassment of losing to Karma Set it's washed away by the taste of victory.
Alright, so you know what I'm looking at here, Card Gamer? I'm looking here at the fact that, you guessed it, one player has Shen and the other does not. The thing that interests me here isn't how Robomaster is gonna play this out, because his hand is pretty self-explanatory. You're gonna play Shen, you're gonna try to use Shen's spell as a blowout, because Shen's spell is a very good card in this matchup. What interests me more is why Rebellion, it's not like his hand is awful. It's lacking Shen and it's lacking interaction, so you're gonna need to find one of these at some point. But the question is, how do you set yourself up for that in the best possible way?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because we are missing quite a bit of important cards to actually win this matchup. Like you were saying, the barriers and the interaction doesn't actually let us trade on the board how we need to properly. Trying to use a big card like Screeching Dragon, though, and the Jarvan attack, I think is going to be really important, as well as these challengers, to just try and get any value trade that naturally presents itself where we don't really have to commit any spells to it, so that when we do draw those spells, we've trimmed the board as much as possible and we can kind of go into the important combats with those spells back up.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty well said. And here we see the Brightsteel coming down, and this is just looking really, really rough.
Yeah, it's just so hard. The Shen's gonna flip this turn because of the interaction with the 3-1 getting another barrier, and with the Shen boat and a Shen spell backup and the Shen boat drawing another Shen spell, it's just going to be so hard for Why Rebellion to ever get real blocks on this board.
I cannot stress how busted this game state is for Robo. He has all the cheaper stuff, and they're all this one mana unit is insane in this matchup, because we just made our opponent, in this case White Rebellion, care about a 1 mana card that is going to make him spend 3 mana card, in this Pioneer as a blocker. Then you're gonna have to pull it with Screeching Dragon to get rid of it at some point, or you're not gonna be able to get rid of it at all. So next turn you're gonna have to block it again because it's too big, and then you're gonna block it with a unit that's also very expensive. It's just gonna tax so much. The 3-1 is more of a passive kind of engine for the deck that allows your opponent, makes attacking harder for your opponent. But this 7-2, which is gonna keep growing, is the real threat here. Not because of its ability to win the game immediately, but it's just very slowly going to drain White Rebellion of so many resources if we can keep protecting it.
Yeah, and that's what Shen really has, right? And what we've kind of been talking about is this ability with a few different cards that kind of all rely on Shen to really be facilitated, have the ability in different ways to really drag you out and make you spend 2 or 3 or cards that are just a bit too expensive for what the Shen player invested to deal with all of these cards, and it lets Shen just be able to out attrition a lot of decks.
So this is a pretty interesting spot. White Rebellion plays Shen, so both players have Shen now. You could argue it's maybe a little too late for White Rebellion, especially if he swings here, because if he swings here, the Shen is just dead. I mean, I think as White Rebellion, you always have to take the pass here. Ooh, we're swinging.
Yeah, I feel yes, your opponent obviously has something, but I feel you kind of just have to take the mana.
I mean, Robo has lethal, I think, if you swing here. Yes. Yeah, you just take the pass. This is not good. White Rebellion keeps drawing into these units. Whereas a big part of this matchup is the spells, form up, single combat, other barrier spells, so that you can actually survive in combat. Here, Robo just plays the Sacred Protector, and White Rebellion will not die this turn, but he will have to block every single unit because they all have double attack and there is no interaction or counterplay to it. One thing I was wondering, a while ago, was if it was correct to go for the heal, or instead of just going for 2 blunders. We see this other Sacred Protector come down, which is going to help stabilize a little bit, but with the single combat that Robo has in his hand, he's going to be able to just generate a huge board advantage from this spot.
Yeah, it's just a really unfortunate situation on the side of White Rebellion. I mean, you look at this game, and yeah, there's some things you definitely could have changed up. Yeah, maybe you should have taken a second blunder on this Explorer. But at the end of the day, you look at both players' perspectives. You watch this VOD back, and I don't think there was a whole lot why Rebellion could have done when RoboMaster plays properly and plays his hand like he did. And it's just kind of the sad situation of, card games sometimes, especially in mirror matches.
Yeah, I was gonna point to that. Like, people often complain about mirror matches, and like, I am usually one of these people that are like, well, actually, this mirror is pretty good, etc., etc. But like, every claim has some form of truth to it, and when people say that mirror matches feel really awful to play, this game would be a good example of why that is the case. Why Rebellion didn't really have that many meaningful choices. RoboMaster kind of just had the earlier Shen, the earlier Snowball, was able to convert better with his units. And to no fault of their own, why Rebellion just found himself in a position where there is not much he can do.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, like you said, there's not much you can do this game, but it's all about just rally back for next game. You have 2 more sets tonight, and those are 2 more potential wins.
Yeah, very, very easily could still bounce back. It's a very long night for these players. They're going to be playing 3 sets, and it's an even longer night for us. We're going to be casting 4, so definitely a lot to still stay tuned for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm. Plenty of content coming up, and a lot of games for these guys, not just this week, but also next week before we go into playoffs. So, definitely important to keep high team morale after, the first set, even if things don't go that well. I know the Aegis, Hash, and I ended up winning. We lost our first set, I believe. So,
No, we won our first set, but we had a pretty decent week.
Oh, yeah. We threw the collab set, so it happens.
Yeah, you can bounce back from a loss. Like it's extremely doable. So we see that set finish up. RoboMaster taking the win 2-1 against White Rebellion, and that means it's a clean 3-0 sweep from Zoe Celestials against Misfortune's Powder Monkey, as these 2 teams start their season for this Aegis League. One with a pretty happy start, very confident. I'm sure my EU boys are feeling very well right now. And other team, a little rocky, but hopefully they can bounce back, and we'll see how the rest of the night goes for them.
Mm-hmm. I think if you look at all of the games overall, it probably doesn't feel as bad as it looks. Like, Y Rebellion had a pretty close set up until this last game, and I'd imagine the other games went the same way. But yeah, it's all about that rally, like we were talking about.
Yep, and that's pretty much it, I believe, for this first set, since all of the other games are done. So, for the first time tonight, we're going to send you guys off to a short break. And then we'll be back with our second set, which is the one that I think both of us are looking forward to the most. It's going to be Azir's Ascendant going up against Maokai's Sapling. So, stay tuned for that. We'll be back shortly.
Will be fun.
All right, guys, welcome back. We are here with our second set of the night, 2 out of 4. So after this, we'll be halfway through. Once again, since this is the draft league, we got one more set than usual on these Friday nights. So it's going to be a very long broadcast. I hope you guys are enjoying and staying in for the entire ride. So, who do we have up now, Craig Gamer?
This is probably the match of the week I was the most excited for. We have Azir's Ascended versus Maokai Saplings. So, for those of you who don't know, on Azir's Ascended, we have a very stacked lineup. We have ABG Taigai, open winner. We have Sleepy Punda, Real Prism Sword, and Spids, who are maybe not quite as well recognized names with the same accomplishments as everyone else in this tournament at first glance, but they're very good players who I think hold their own and are maybe even better than some of these players that do have some of the big accomplishments. So a very good team. And then on the other side, we have Maokai Saplings, which has Donut, who is previous Worlds player, Mtux, who just very good ladder warrior in AM, Jinden, similar thing in EU, and then Ninja Duelist, who is coming off of winning the last Aegis. So a very strong team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to mention a point about when you were talking about Azir's Ascended. Some people, obviously, as you said, wouldn't maybe have heard of these names that are on that team outside of Taigai, obviously, because he's won an Open this year. But you can't forget, Spids was not originally on this team, but she was the first picked player in the entire draft, which goes to say something. She was initially picked by Shodox's team, which we will get to later tonight. And then there was a swap that was made, and she has become part of this team. And to me, that made this team a lot more appealing and a lot more exciting for me to watch. And I was really looking forward to the set this weekend. I promise you guys, it's because I think the players are very good and not because I have any personal investment in them. I promise it has nothing to do with that copium. But once I found out the two people were watching now, I got even a little bit more excited. So reveal who we're watching today from these two teams.
Yeah, so tonight our matchup is going to be between Taigai from Azir's Ascended and Maokai Saplings. I think it's going to be a really fun matchup. Taigai has a really fun lineup that, I can't wait to watch. We're playing the John and Nyla. We're on the Temple List version, electing to not go with any boats and just doing 2 of Elefante for the top end. Pretty standard stuff. One thing to note in this version isn't really off or different compared to normal versions, but we are playing the 2 of Divine Draft to help in the mirrors, and we're playing the 2 of Heavy Metals to help in the weapony mid-range matchups like Jack's Warren.
Yeah, big fan of Heavy Metal. I think it makes a lot of sense in this deck because this is the deck that everyone's centering their lineups around. So there's 2 types of lineups. There's lineups that will leave this deck open, and then there's lineups that will ban this deck. And if you look at all the lineups that would leave this deck potentially open, Heavy Metal is a blowout against every single deck pretty much. It's a blowout against Jaxorn, it's a blowout against Aatrox, not a blowout against Overwhelm, but it's pretty good against Overwhelm in general because when they drop 1 club, they just aren't allowed to play it. So the addition of the card makes sense. Divine Draft is a little bit more interesting, but when you look at the lineup, I think it adds up. As you said, it's for the mirror match. It's probably also partially for Janatimo, which is the other Jana deck, which we might see later today, we might not. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, that card is also really good in that matchup, right? So makes a lot of sense. Pretty big fan of the choices made in this list, and also pretty big fan of the Elefantes because I am just a big fan of Elefanti. So not much else to say about this list. Let's move on. I would spend years and years and years talking about this list, but I think Card Gamer would spend even more, so I'll just let you take the wheel.
Yeah, so the reason why I picked this set was because I wanted to watch some Jinx Cannon. This meta, it's a bit weak to aggro. People just want to play 1 unit per turn, and playing some Flame Chompers, playing some Burn, it's pretty effective against that. And that's what Taigai did today. There's some decisions on this list, I think, that make the list a little bit heavy and could make it a little bit clunky in some areas, like having the 3 Squeaker and the 3 Scrap Heap and the 3 Pie Toss. But I think a list built like this, when you curve out in the right order, it's just going to be so hard for most decks that people brought this week to be able to actually deal with it properly.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this deck. I definitely thought that like nerfing both Wrench and Squicker at the same time was a little bit too much, but I'm still I'm happy to see this deck make a reappearance, even if it's in very small doses right now. We'll see how it takes over for the rest of the week if that ever becomes a thing that is more prominent. But I'm very excited to watch Jinx Cannon, to be honest. And as you said, there's a lot of Mecha Yordles here. I don't know how good that is, especially by looking through this list at first glance. The ratioing between discard and discard fodder looks a little bit unbalanced, but maybe we're just saying that the deck is strong enough anyway. So let's see.
Yeah, and then taking us to our third deck for Taigai, kind of the one that is a little bit off compared to looking at the first two. We have Jax Ornn, which is a really solid, respectable mid-range deck. And, nothing too weird in this. The one thing that stands out just a little bit is the Bellows Breath, considering, the type of field we're expecting to play in with a lot of mid-range. But if you do hit those aggro decks, it does end up being pretty good. Also, one Parts Made Whole.
It's not awful. It's not awful for Bellows Breath to be used against mid-range sometimes, because if they have one X1 and then one chunky unit and you play Bellows Breath and you get rid of that X1 and you get a big unit because it forges your equipment twice, it makes it walls down nicely sometimes. But obviously it's not the card you would be intending to play for in these kinds of matches. It's just it's not like a complete blank in these spots. The other thing I wanted to mention is the second copy of Wildcard's Ferocity, because I think most people are on one, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm a big fan of playing more copies because I think so there's a couple of things. The Blacksmith nerf makes it a more viable target, which is very nice, because a lot of the times you didn't want to do it on Blacksmith because you actually wanted the healing. It was really incrementally nice, especially into the decks you were playing into last meta. And then also the big stats is something that a lot of decks can't interact with. It's really difficult. Yeah, you can freeze it, but you can't kill it. It will tax more than one resource. And it also is very good on action economy, right? It gives you some really nasty open attacks. So I'm a fan. I'm a fan of this list.
Yeah, on top of all of that, like you said, it just also has very powerful synergy with helping you flip your champions. And when Jax and Ornn flip in this deck, the game will end very quickly. So having a card that threatens to end the game on its own and helps you get to your other win conditions is just really strong.
Yeah, so looking forward to seeing this lineup. So we went through Taigai, great player in his own right. Let's move on to MTech now, who is the person that he's going to be playing against. And we start with a resident sleeper. Oh my god, why are we watching this set, man?
Yeah, a hater deck if I've ever seen one. Karma set Freljord. Winning the game? Nah, I'm good. You winning the game? Yeah, I'm good on that as well. That won't happen either.
And I tried this deck a little bit this patch, and I thought when I played Karma Set Asai a few patches ago, that was the deck that was you flip your Karma, the game hasn't even started. No. This deck says, hold my beer, Karma flipped, we're in it for 5 more turns. And the most depressing thing is that these games are losable.
Yeah, so the thing about Karma in this deck is she's here so we can double coins to make sure we get showstoppers, and so we can double Karma spell to make sure we don't deck out. The first game I ever saw this deck, we played to deck out, and then that also happened the second game.
Yeah, I'm hoping this just gets banned even if it's an incorrect ban, for the love of God. Let's move on. We've got Shen J4. This list has not a lot actually. It's a bit of a mix between the two lists that we saw earlier today, right? So we see the sign-in, but we also see the similar barrier split to the other list that we saw.
I think it's one card off of Y Rebellion's list. I'm pretty sure we're just playing a second Shenbode instead of a rally. But I think it's 39 of the same cards.
It might be. Yeah, it does look very similar. I have nothing to say about this deck after last set. You guys all saw the power of this deck, especially when it draws Shen. So we'll just move on to Ashe LeBlanc, which also doesn't really need much of an introduction. Is there any differences in this list? Yeah, I guess this is a more list. There's no combat cook, there's no blacksmith. MTech opting for the armed acquisitioner instead of the blacksmith. So both Robomaster and MTech are trying to do a similar thing. They just did it differently.
And then we're also going for the Hearthguard instead of the Saurian, just aiming for the consistent stats throughout our deck instead of, the more focused buff and the potential card draw and stats.
Yeah. So the two, I would say MTech's lineup is pretty typical, and if I had to guess, the Ashe LeBlanc and MTech's lineup is a bit of a liability in this set. Although I'm not 100% sure about the Jack Sword versus Ashe LeBlanc lineup, Ashe LeBlanc matchup. I think it's Ashe LeBlanc favored, but the two other decks that Tagai has are very good into Ashe LeBlanc. When it comes to predictions here, I am going for the saplings, not because I think they are favored necessarily, not saying they are not, but I just like the logo, so saplings.
It's a good logo. But yeah, going into it, I think Azir's ascended across the board. They have pretty strong lineups. They're doing a pretty good job of attacking these mid-range decks, and there's a lot of mid-range this week, so I think they're going to do well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the set. Hopefully, we get to see the play be very good. As for the bans, honestly, not 100% sure how this is supposed to go because, as I said, Tagai has two decks that are really good into Ashe, and then one deck that is really bad into Ashe. And then MTech has I'm not too familiar. I think MTech is always banning Jananila. I think he's always banning Jananila. Just don't know where Tagai would go from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, MTux cannot ban Jax Ornn, right? You're always playing Jax Ornn, so from Tagai, I'm almost thinking, how am I getting Jax Ornn through? And trying to, ban from there.
If we're thinking about how to get Jax Ornn through, it might be a Shen J4 ban. Alright, we ban Karmazet instead. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I'm personally not too familiar with these specific matchup spreads because I'm a lazy guy. But I'm gonna assume that these guys have done their prep and they know their bans, and I will rock it. So the Karmazet ban, I don't hate it. I think it makes some amount of sense. Honestly, as you said, Jax Ornn is the liability in Tagai's lineup into all of these decks. Is Karma the worst? My initial guess would be probably not, but we'll see. We'll see if it pays off.
I can definitely see how it's very problematic, though. Just bounce, stun, obliterate, cry. It's definitely not a matchup you want to play as Jax Ornn.
I mean, the only difference is the other two decks apply counter pressure, whereas Karma doesn't, right?
Well, you can out-attrition the other decks with an Ornn. Those decks aren't able to deal with the Ornn card effectively, right? Ashe kind of has to combo kill you, and Jarvan has to go around you.
Yeah, they definitely need to crack back. It's not as you said, Ornn. I think Shen J4 can deal with Ornn. Ashe can't. So yeah, it makes sense. Let's see. So the game start. We see this Jinx Cannon deck go up against Shen J4. I have no clue how this matchup is supposed to go. Tagai has drawn a champion. We were talking about this a little bit before we went on this cast. Actually, this specific matchup. We were talking about how drawing two cannons in this matchup is
broken. Yeah, Cannons fell as god tier in this matchup. We were talking about it, and look at Tagai. This is how you win an open, everyone. Take notes.
I'm actually very curious if it's actually correct to play the Squeaker on turn 2, by the way, because now that he's a 1/2, and also the range giving HP instead of impact, I could have seen an argument to start with Baboon instead and just say, okay, the Squeaker is now more of a mid game card, it's a pseudo 3-drop, pseudo 4-drop, based on the turns we want to play him in. But Tagai, however, opting to go for this instead, picking the Von Mech, which is obviously not a horrible pick, but it does cause some issues when it comes to flipping Jinx. So we might even see it get discarded down the line.
Definitely an interesting decision. If you look at this game of how Tagai played it out with how the Mecha Yordle he picked, with what he picked on with the Mecha Yordle he picked and how he played the Squeaker. You can kind of tell that he's going for this game plan where he's really just trying to go super, super wide, just wide, tax everything, and then around like turn 8 or 9, probably try and flip the Jinx and get that last bit of burn.
Yeah, and I don't hate that gameplay because Shen J4 is a deck that's gonna like force you into some really uncomfortable positions in combat where you have to accept unfavorable trades to progress your game plan, and your game plan in this case is burning your opponent out because you are a burn deck for the most part. So going for this like refill heavy hand, try to set up the ability to keep going wide after taking these bad trades. Does make a good amount of sense to me. And looking at Taigai's hand here, I think we are very well poised to be able to do that.
Yeah, like if you look at this hand, I think we could have maybe sequenced things a little bit cleaner with like this Von Mech when we think about things a little bit more. But regardless, we're gonna have the ability to just get on board, refill everything, make our squeakers huge, and then just try and use like this Jinx for burnout. And our opponent killed this Kennen because it's all their Broadwing could kill, but killing that Kennen is going to allow us to stun this Broadwing next turn, which is part of the reason why this Kennen card is so valuable, because he's either going to end up tempoing your opponent when you have 2 of them like this, or he gets to be used as a recall spell and burn and stopping lifesteal.
Yeah, big fan of this discard by Taigai. He is acknowledging that like River Shaper, while it might be tempting because it draws you into more burn, is not really the type of card and the type of mana you want to be spending in this matchup. And on the other hand, I also like MTuck's decision to play Sinon because he's saying, okay, yes, this turn I'll be taking a lot of damage, but what I really need to see in this matchup is Spirit's Refuge. And if I don't play my Sinon right now, things get really awkward with the timings because I have J4 in my hand, right? Because so when I attack next turn, J4 is going to force himself on the board. Yeah. Have single combat. We just need the second part now. If he hits Refuge, we might be able to actually stabilize things.
I'm pretty sure he's dead here because Taigai played this really smart in holding this spear, and please spear the Kennen here. You didn't discard the spear. We have the 2 augment.
I don't think he's dead because of single, right?
Not quite dead, but...
Single stays, but it's a very good spot. It's a very good spot.
Yeah. You might as well be.
I don't know if you might as well be. Like you're going down to 6, right? Yeah, you're going down to 6. So like obviously this is like a very tight range. Like Taigai can finish MTuck off with some burn. Obviously the Jinx is going to be a little difficult to flip, but also like on the board next turn is going to be a pretty wide swing. But if MTuck can find the Spirit's Refuge, he might still be able to get to stabilize on time.
It will be very tight if he can swing it through, because we are 2 Jinx Rockets off. We can't get a Jinx Rocket until next turn. But a lot of pressure we can apply on the side of Taigai. Oh, we have a lot of units. We have the ability to go wide. The Spore buff from the Mecha Caster is going to be really impactful. We have the Wrench again to, keep the value up and keep digging for burn. Definitely a scary spot.
Yeah, I mean, like, if I'm Taigai here, I might even consider, like, just dropping the Jinx and being like, if you want to kill this Jinx, I'm completely fine because you just want to go as wide as possible for the next token. J4 flips. The J4 flip isn't bad because of the Cataclysm. It means that, like, every development that Taigai makes needs to be worth more than 1 unit, because J4 is just going to tax that unit. Obviously, the mana is a consideration as well, so it will depend. It's like very contextual, but it's still like something that is a very good hit. The Harpoon is also a very good draw from Taigai. I'm a big fan of Harpoon. Like, one of the main reasons I think this deck is good, and one of the main reasons why I think if you play Jinx, you go to Bandle City right now, is Electro Harpoon, in my opinion.
I agree. I think Harpoon is really powerful in the meta. The ability to push damage face and threaten to remove a blocker definitely does a lot right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And here, we're abandoning the Trumpet Decker, which might make some amount of sense, given the fact that we want to just flip with Jinx and try to, burn out MTucks. Like, this battle.
I'm not a fan of this, because now if we draw blowback, we're in a position where we actually have ways to lose the game.
Yeah, I would have
drawn a Mystic Shot, the GOAT.
I would have taken the pass, and then because also like sometimes you want to go face with the Perilous Space Tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would have personally taken the pass. That being said, we have caster vision, so we are gods, and we can confirm that Taigai is winning this game unless he finds the disconnect button.
Yeah, and I think he's got it in the bag. I don't think we're gonna hit the DC button, and I think that'll take us to game 2.
He's not even gonna misstick his own unit. How boring, man. God damn it.
Resident Sleeper.
Yeah. Okay, so Jinx kind of showing why it's got some merit in this meta, right? Like, as I said earlier in the stream, mid-range decks are often on 1 unit per turn. Aggro decks are often on a lot more than 1 unit per turn. So it's going to have a pretty big impact on the outcome of the game in that regard. Jinx getting the win, but as we also discussed earlier, this set has always been about getting the Jax Ornn through.
Yeah, and now we have 2 chances to get it through, but it will not be easy. You know, we have to get it through a freeze deck, and we have to get it through a barrier deck, and we did spend a good bit of the beginning of this cast just talking about how problematic these types of effects are for these board-based decks. And Jax Ornn is kind of like the poster child of mid-range, or at least has been for standard for most of this year.
Yeah, it's like, if you wanted to be more specific, right? Like, you would call Jax Ornn mid-range, and then like J4 Shen and Ashe LeBlanc. Also, typically the cultist package would be referred to as this. These kinds of mid-range as like anti-mid-range. Like Viego would also be in that kind of category, right? Where like they are mid-range decks, but they are slightly slower than stuff like Jax Ornn, historically stuff like Severakshan, etc. So they just have a better matchup because they have like a more resilient top end, or like specific key interactions like barrier, freeze, and these are both things in this scenario, and in this context, that will have a big impact on Jax Ornn, because it's not something that Jax Ornn deals with very effectively.
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it, of how kind of the meta works, how it's kind of like a circle and everything attacks everything. And
more or less. Did you know that every deck in Legends of Runeterra is mid-range that can flex into combo?
Yeah, I wrote that actually.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, I'm a bit of an innovator.
Yeah, someone out there really, really hates you for saying that. I'll let you know.
Yeah, good.
Ah, I see.
Okay. So speaking of mid-range matchups and what's really powerful, permanent +1/+1 buffs. That's the good stuff. Getting this blacksmith to be a 3/5 is going to be really powerful for holding down the board in the mid game, especially because there's no Shen on the board, there's no Badger Bear, so there aren't really effective attacks without like the use of this barrier.
Yeah, I imagine there are 2 things that Taiga needs to acknowledge about this matchup that he needs to put into good use here if he wants to get ahead. So first of all, he's the beatdown. He's not the control. Oh my god, okay, by that I did not mean we just slam the SWAT class ferocity.
We are the beatdown, Ash.
Okay.
Beatdown.
That's not what I would have done at all. I don't know if it's correct or if it's incorrect, but wow, it's wild.
No, it's based. Because, like, you're gonna lose that unit if you don't do this.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes it right, but
I like somewhat understand. Also, by the way, J4 just flipped, which is problematic, but we'll draw it. Yeah, wow, that's just really surprising. It's not awful. It might have been correct, to be honest. Like, I get the idea because, like, in combat, Shen J4 is the deck that gets to cheat in this matchup. So making sure that all of your units can stay alive, or like preserving them as well as possible, is definitely like a valuable concept in this matchup. So choosing to like just play 6 mana of that, it like holds the fort pretty well. Obviously, barrier powers through it. Apologies, J4 is not flipped just yet, but he's pretty close.
He will flip when he strikes with his barrier, right? So he's pretty much.
Yeah. If that strike goes through, he's flipped. And also, that's the other thing I was gonna get to: the amount of damage it is going to push. Because now, Mtex is at 8 HP, which gives Taigai outs with like Ornn, Overwhelm equip, stuff like that. Obviously, we can see the Spirit's Refuge in Mtex's hand, but like that's not a guaranteed source of healing in this matchup because there is like a non-zero amount of freeze in Jaxorn.
Yeah, the freeze is relevant. And one thing that is also very relevant, and that's going to save MTux a lot, is the fact that this Wild Claw only hit for 7, so the Ornn didn't actually flip yet.
Yeah, I mean, it was also not equipped, so it can never. It doesn't flip at all.
No, it doesn't need to be equipped to flip.
You sure? I think it's like an equipped ally has struck for 8 damage. I'm not 100% sure though.
No, it's not.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Okay, that's my bad. I am being a bozo. My bad. J4 came down while I was checking that, and J4 flipped, which is very, very problematic, by the way, because Jax Ornn, like, one of the things that Jax Ornn really, really, really wants to do, and it's also why it's traditionally really bad into Ionia, is that the deck always wants to develop.
Does Taigai see the line? Are we going to put the weapon on Jax? No, we can't. If we left the Jax weapon on Jax instead of swapping, and then we counter-striked here, we could have attacked and flipped Jax on the stack, and then the Ornn would have overwhelm from the Light of Acacia.
Yeah, that would have been a line to consider for sure. The one thing I would say about it is that like the Ornn would still be a little bit smaller because it's because that the Jax equipment is
+0.
It would be +1/+1 because you would forge it when the J4 pulls it, right?
The one on Ornn would be +0/+0.
Oh yeah, the one on Ornn would be +0/+0. So like it's a little it's not, I'm not 100% sure if it's correct or not, but it was a play worth considering, but it did have its issues. That being said, this line that was taken here by MTuck is just an absolute blowout, and like if there is no freeze off the top here, it's just lethal. Like this is why the J4 is so powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're developing into very nice because we have
the deny. Yep.
Yeah. Completely fine. I mean, I think Taigai's in a position where he has to rip it.
Yeah. It's a one of deny, so your opponent probably has it when they develop here, but you gotta force it.
Like it's not like you always swing there if you don't have deny, and you always develop there if you have deny, and in either spots it's lethal. So it's 1-1. This was a pretty quick set so far, and as we said, Jax Ornn squeezing through is going to be problematic, and now we have an even worse matchup, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, I might have bozoed out. I think Shin J4 is worth for Jax Ornn on data, but I just said that for some reason. National Blanc, regardless, is still a bad matchup for Jax Ornn.
Yeah, not a fun matchup over here either, so it's definitely going to be a struggle, but definitely we're going to see if we can find the outs. Starting off with an Omen Hawk and a Jax, it's not a bad start though.
Ooh, MTux's hand is like not the greatest. This Armed Acquisitioner is okay in this matchup because of equipment removal, but something that's really, really important in this matchup is applying counter pressure, because if you give Jax Ornn time, even if you freeze, people need to remember freezing is not high tempo, freezing is low tempo. So like when you freeze units and you don't actually have pressure to make that freeze meaningful, that's problematic because the next token comes back and then you have to freeze again. And if you don't, and like eventually you just get taxed on all of that, on all of these resources, right? And
can we talk about how talented Taigai is? He didn't play his Jax on 2, so he could top deck a 4/3 Jax. That's my open winner.
That's a pretty big swing. Yeah, that's a pretty big swing. But I mean, like here we go for. Oh, I would have considered going for the LeBlanc.
Yeah, the LeBlanc with the brittle backup to try and progress the flip. But really smart by Taigai, playing around the brittle using the forge beforehand. Really big fan of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing the reason MTech didn't do that actually is because he knows the forge, the time and dedication was face up. So I guess it makes sense. Oh, and we see you can talk about that.
Yep, and then we see Punda going and taking out Jinden. Punda was on the same lineup as MTux and trying to punish Jinden for playing Darius Snar. So kind of a similar dynamic as we have in this set going on, but kind of flipped in which team is playing which lineup.
Yeah, so if Taiga manages to finish this game with a win, Aegis Esports will progress tonight with a win in this matchup, which is, I don't know how these guys' first sets went. I don't even know.
That's a big Jax.
Yeah. I mean, like at this point, low key, like you would want your Jax to die, like your current one, so you can play another one. With that being said, though. Remember how I said that, like, in the early game, that, like, it didn't look like Antak had a lot of pressure in his hand and whatnot? That's about to change very quickly next time.
Mm-hmm.
It's about to change, like, very quickly next time. LeBlanc is flipping, and, like, people forget this, but LeBlanc flip is really, really powerful.
Yes, LeBlanc is very strong. And, like, people don't really play LeBlanc, and LeBlanc doesn't flip often, so, like, people forget that, like, LeBlanc has, like, infinites built into her kit.
Oh my god, this blacksmith is so big, this card didn't get nerfed.
This card got buffed.
Yeah, my god. Like, here, honestly, right, we can just play this big Jax, and we have the Jax spell to block, and it's actually just, like, really, really, really strong.
Mm-hmm. Because it turns off the Brittle Steel as well, right? The LeBlanc technically can live with the Sky Splitter, but
it's just not something you're happy doing. Like,
no, not at all.
It's really, really strong from Taiga here. The one thing I will say though is that despite these units being so big, going tall against the deck with Freezes doesn't always work. Oh, and Taiga doesn't opt to go for the for the line that we expected to see here. Not sure why or why not, but now next turn is looking very scary from MTux's side, because we have Rally. Oh, the bloody business is huge. We have Rally, Mirror Image, bloody business. We have exact mana for all of these.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but feel like if we're not gonna go for the Counter-Strike play last turn, then we're gonna be in a really hard position when we don't top deck the Ornn. Which, we get it off the Saurian now, but it's gonna be really hard to deal with the pressure of what this LeBlanc spell is gonna be able to throw next turn, especially considering the fact that we don't actually have the ability to throw the lethal until turn 9.
Yeah, and MTech opting to go for the Icefell Archer here instead of the Rally line, which I completely understand. Like, we just want to alleviate ourselves from the pressure that's being presented, and then we can just do that next turn, right? Like, we aren't in a rush or anything of that sort.
Mm-hmm. I really like taking things slow, because once you set up this LeBlanc and you play the Tactician, you can, especially if you get the mirror image down to 0, you can really easily just start up this infinite, where if your opponent doesn't have a freeze or a buried in ice to just stop it right there, they're just gonna lose that turn.
Yeah, and then this Jax is just being blown out here by the top deck bloody business. I'm a fan of how MTech played this out. Like, he got himself in a better, like, he by the way this turn went, he put himself in a position where the Rally goes from a stabilizer to a finisher, right? So, like, there's a very, very high chance, especially considering now that Taiga has tapped under Buried in Ice, that the Rally next turn is just lethal.
Mm-hmm. And just playing things, really, this makes sense.
No, man, I think it's fine.
Mm-hmm. I was just trying to, So, like, right now, what MTux is just thinking about is he's thinking about what's the best way to apply pressure with this Rally. Am I supposed to keep the 6-2 alive so I can have it for the Rally later after I try and, like, pressure blockers more? Am I supposed to use it now? And it's an interesting question. I think that full sending here and then using Sky Splitter and Brittle Steel makes a lot of sense on this board, but we'll see what MTux selects, because we're a bit biased with the caster vision.
I'm a fan of doing this swing. I wouldn't swing with Almond Hook. I think it's correct to just do this and then like use as the sky like I'm fine using the Sky Splitter and the Brittle Steel proactively here. Like go Brittle on the 2/3 that block the Hearthguard, and then go Sky Splitter on the okay, we opt to do it like this instead, which is also completely fine because it has the same impact on the board.
This makes sense because we also set up the Star into Brittle later.
Yeah, that
and it can work on the 2/3. I like this line a lot. It's very smart.
That's actually just like better. And then here, I mean, there's not much Taiga can do. The rally comes down, we swing, and then the other rally comes down, we swing again. If it's not lethal, it's just gonna put it's still gonna put Taiga in a position where it's just really hard to recover.
Yep. So we see the freeze come down on there. We're going to full swing besides the 5/5. We're going to freeze the 6/1, and then we're going to play the mirror image on the 5/5, and it's going to be a very clean game by Mr. Tux.
Yeah, we keep the 5/5 back, right?
Yep, you just can't let it die, and then as long as you don't let it die, it should be game.
Yeah, or you're just doing this instead. Yeah.
This should also be guaranteed, right? Because they block 14, and then they take 10, 17, right? Yeah. Oh, no, is this lethal? No, because they block 14, they block 20, and we deal 11.
Is he getting another mirror image? He might be getting another mirror image.
Yeah.
Oh, but we swung with the 5/5. Wait a minute, did we find the line? Temtak!
Uh-oh.
Apega! This took a turn for the unexpected. Am I missing something? No, I'm not.
No, I think we just missed a guaranteed lethal.
Man, what is this?
Alright, this guy's kicked. not from saplings, from RPG.
Oh my god, no, Taiga can come back from this now because of the
no. No! That's actually a crazy top deck.
Bro, M-Duck, what the hell? Man, this was one of the games of all time, for sure.
This is how you win an open, ladies and gentlemen. Mind control your opponents.
No, I mean, not taking away any credit from Taiga here, to be honest. He did what he could with his cards, and honestly, like, we always, like, we had a set earlier today where we were like, man, can Robo just scoop? And, like, this is a good example of why sometimes you don't scoop.
Yeah, and also, with everything, like, fair to Taiga, I'm making this joke, but, like, Taiga, he's playing well. He's hitting good draws, and he's getting a little bit lucky. But, you know, like, that's what you kind of need to do to, like, win a tournament and pop off, you know? It takes a little bit of luck. But he's playing very well, and if he wins this game, it's a combination of both, right? Definitely takes a lot to pull out a game like this.
The fact that this represents lethal is so massive, by the way. Like, it's actually, like, quite problematic for MTech. Wow, I cannot believe the turn, like, how this game took a turn for the worse, because I felt like MTech was in such a commanding position. And I mean, he was, right? I think if you just put the 5/5 back and you mirror image, it's just guaranteed lethal?
I'm pretty sure there was a guaranteed lethal.
Yeah, wow, and now we don't even, like, what can we draw? Nothing. Yeah, this game is just over. Wow.
Yeah, you just fish fight the Ash, right?
Ooh, that's
crazy. That's very well played to Taiga. You know, he's taking advantage of every opportunity that was given to him, and pulled it out for his team.
Yeah, no, through no fault of his own, and just found the line that lost the game, and here we are. Like, I guess no, it just doesn't matter because we play this 1-drop, and this 1-drop can block down. Yeah. And then
also, I'm pretty sure our weapon's big enough that we can just put it on Ornn, and Ornn can block again, and it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're saying at least too. Is drawing harsh ones even enough? Yeah, it's enough for that turn, but it doesn't stop. But like, it doesn't put you in a winning position automatically. Yeah, damn. This is really, really bad. Honestly, kind of disappointing to see, but also just part of the game sometimes. It is what it is, and we see Taiga barring a harsh wind stop deck.
Well, there's one harsh winds top deck, but not for the right player.
Yeah, and so Taigai pulling ahead with a bit of a very rocky finish from that game from MTUX's side, and managing to win out with Jack Zorn against Ash LeBlanc, which is pretty huge. Taking up a win here against MTUX 2-1. We've seen very tight sets, and we've seen very good level of play. But with that result being done, and with the knowledge that Sleepy Panda has defeated Jinden 2-0, this means that Azir's Ascended have defeated Mokai Saplings in this fixture for the weekend, which means that I've been informed this is their first set of the night, both of these teams, and that means one team gets to start with a win, as usual, Azir's Ascended in this case. Pretty good looking for them. Card Gamer, you were right with the predictions this time. Once again, I am 1 for 2, you are 2 for 2. I am kind of a bozo. And Mokai Saplings not living up to the logo.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna happen sometimes, but, I think it's just, it's life. As MTUX, you're gonna be a bit upset at yourself. You're gonna have to go back and you're gonna have to clean up those mistakes. But as Taigai, I think, I've said it before, and, in a little bit lesser joking way, this is how you win these big tournaments. You recognize, I'm not supposed to win. How do I win? I do this. And you just try and see if you can do it. And if you look at his finals, it went the same way. Bro won with, Rise against, double aggro, or, triple aggro lineup. You just have to play for the out. And, I mean, the man can hit the out.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The play was completely fine, especially in the Jack Zorn games. I think the Jinx games could have probably been a little bit cleaner, as you said in the casting. But Jack Zorn, as far as I'm concerned, especially that Wildcats Ferocity on that specific phase, specific turn against Shen J4, he did end up losing that game. But the more I think about that, the more I like the line. Pretty happy to see Taiga play so well, because he's also someone that's going to be representing NA in the World Championship most likely. So pretty good to see good players get to the World Championship. Also, I've just been informed, Spids has 2-1 her opponent, who I believe was Donut, which means that Azir's Ascended actually with a 3-0 sweep, so our second 3-0 sweep of the night. We'll see if this pattern continues.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see some big statements coming out from Azir's Ascended and Zoe Celestials. But in the back half of the night, we're going to take it up with the other side of the groups. And before then, we're going to kick it to break. We'll catch you in a bit.
push it away. In dance chase and whispers before they all just fade. So how can I leave it all behind when I refuse to watch it fall to dust? I will find a this porcelain mirage may start to break. Each piece a reminder, every single little mistake. So how can I leave it all behind when I refuse to watch it fall to dust? Tell me why it won't ever be the same. I'll burn it all, no matter who's to blame. I'll find a way. I'll find a way. And every time I close my eyes, a little less of you remains. I know you're slipping further from me now. Am I too far away? Tell me why I won't ever feel the same. I'll try everything until you're back again. I'll find a way back to I'll find a way
Welcome back, everyone. It is me once again. I apologize for being here for so long. We are at set number 3 of the night, which is past the halfway point. We are now going to be watching Lee Sin's Dragons coming up against Swain's Flock. And these are both two very good teams with a lot of big names, very notably so, because I think like if you combine the teams that are in these two teams, they are like the most recognizable probably. But we also have a little bit of a interesting debacle that is going on in the set. God give what do you listen?
What you have to understand, guys, is that 9 p.m. EST is actually nap time. And Cephalopod forgot to set his alarm and has slept through this tournament. So unless he gets up in the next like 15 minutes or so, we're going to be watching only two of the Lee Sin's Dragons play tonight. Grandpa Roji and Tunnel Shark up against Kawako and Rusticles. Cephalopod shows up, him and Akata will play. That'll be a fun match you can check out on Akata's channel. But probably all the content is going to be over here for this next hour.
Yeah, so obviously that also means that with that in mind, Swain's Flock only need to win one best of 3 to actually guarantee a win, obviously, unless Cephalopod wakes up within the allowed time frame. With that being said, you did mention the people that are actually going to be playing. Aikata got picked to Cephalopod, so that's not going to be happening unless circumstances change. We have Kwako into Tunnel Shark, and we have Roji into Rusticles. The match we have picked to watch is Rusticles into Grandpa Roji. Both of these players need no introduction. Grandpa Roji is qualified for Worlds, also was qualified for Worlds last year. One of the best mid-range players in the game, most likely. And that is the opinion of also many people in the community. A lot of people know the guy because he also streams. And we also have Rusticles, who is the other guy we are watching. And honestly, I thought Rusticles was one of the best possible draft picks in this league. So I'm really looking forward to watching him.
Yeah, I mean, Rusticles is a great player. If you haven't seen him being featured throughout the community, just overall, great guy. He has a really inspirational story just on how, he is as a person. And then on the top of that, the guy's an absolute beast. In the World's Points race, does well every time he competes in Aegis, top 4 in the last Open. I believe it was the last Open, not Eternal, right? The guy's just an absolute monster.
It was Eternal,
Oh, it was the Eternal?
Yeah, it was the Eternal Open. Regardless though, anyone who top 4s an Open is no joke. And we'll see him pilot these decks to success. We see this John and Timo deck for the first time today. I believe this is the other John deck that has been taking over the meta. It's using the consistency of the draw power that John has to find champion strength with an elusive core of Timo, Acorn, and Clocklink to make this really, really powerful finish, and also with like a lot of evasion. It's a really, really powerful deck. A lot of people think it's a little weaker than Jananila for several reasons, like the consistency and the ability that like the agency that it loses because of the more linear game plan. But it is very, very, very powerful. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm also skeptical about whether we even get to see this deck, because to be honest, in a lot of lineups you just want to ban Janna. So we'll see what Roji's lineup is, and we'll figure it out from there. But let's move on to the next deck.
So moving on to the next deck, I believe when we see this Demacia Ionia region combination, it's always going to be Shen J4. And yep, here it is. We see a few things that are pretty standard. We have 3 of the finisher type cards of being like either the Shen or Jarvan both, Sign In and Rally. We see our 5 barriers. We see our 1 deny, 3 single, 3 form up. Real standard list, playing everything by the books here. You've heard us talk about Shen J4 the previous 2 sets tonight. Same thing again.
Yeah. Well, no, at this point, I said last time it doesn't need any introduction, and then I was like, but no, it needs no introduction. Let's move on to the most interesting deck, actually, because there's 2 things about this. The first thing is that it's deep. So somewhere in Poland, in a little small room, Alan is screaming right now. The second thing, though, is that this is the only SI deck this entire week.
Yeah, SI not doing too hot right now. The type of mid-range in the meta, SI does not like playing into, so we haven't seen much. But Rusticles being the lone person, bringing deep, and he's actually not really playing any of the new cards. One thing that you may run into a lot of people doing on ladder with deep is playing the new, I don't remember the name of it.
Watery Grave?
Yeah, Watery Grave, where it obliterates 6 cards in a deck, slow speed. And it lets you just end the game instantly when you play Maokai. But going for a more traditional build of deep, where we're trying to hold down the board and then cheat with the Nautilus discount, or, sometimes we'll play the Maokai to close the game and wait 4 turns for our opponent to deck out.
Yeah, very excited to see deep, because honestly, also not expecting this to get banned, and I'm just looking forward to seeing SI, because obviously it's very underrepresented. And while you did say that SI doesn't really like playing into the type of midrange that's around right now, Deep specifically does pose a pretty reasonable threat into a lot of those decks, especially considering the tools that they have, like heavy metal and whatnot. Moving on to Grandpa Roji's lineup, and you guys can see already a bit of a spoiler below, where you can see his 3 decks with the icons of the regions. We are headed into a very, very, very interesting lineup.
Yeah, so playing a bunch of weapons, you know? All mid-range, all weapons. What you come to expect from Roji. Another Jax Orin, seeing it again. Pretty in line with what we've been seeing throughout most of tonight. You got the 1 Bellows Breath, a couple copies of Wild Claw's Ferocity, your 3 Sky Splitter, a couple freezes. Everything by the books here.
Yeah, it's standard Jax Orin. The only thing that's missing really is Buried in Ice. Bellows Breath, you would say, is a little unconventional, but we've seen it put in work last set when Tagai was piloting the deck, and we might see it put in work again. But other than that, it's a pretty standard Jax Orin list that we have come to all recognize by now. Let's move on to the next deck, because I'm really excited to talk about the other 2 decks, honestly.
Yeah. So moving into our next deck, we have Samira Varus, and it's really interesting to see Samira Varus nowadays with the Samira nerf. It's a lot weaker than it used to be back in the day, but certainly very powerful at beating mid-range with tools like the one-sided strike and the freeze. And we're about to get into game, so we'll hop right into our last deck. We have Aatrox Vayne, a deck that I'm sure everyone knows by now. Has Vayne and Ranger Knight, a really powerful tempo combination to punish decks that want to play slow, as well as Aatrox and Darken as this late game insurance to really be able to grind and go late. Just a really powerful deck that's really effective at getting on the board and punishing opponents.
Alright, so the players have already started, we've been informed. I would love to keep talking about these decks, but let's just move on to the set, because that's where the action actually is. I don't even know if we're gonna be able to walk through bans. Yeah, we're just gonna straight go in. So we're gonna find out the bans through production probably during the game. If not, we'll figure it out when the fixtures when the games keep rolling. Looking at these hands, so heavy metal is obviously very traditionally a massive blowout for Jax Orin in the past, and looking at Roji's hand, it will be the case this game. And honestly, looking at Rusticles' hand, there's double Sea Scarab. Can we talk about Sea Scarab is like secretly the best card in the game, by the way?
The best card in the game?
Yeah, it's really broken when you have it on 2.
Yeah, but like, you have to be playing deep.
Yeah, but the card is broken.
I mean, yeah, but then you're playing deep.
Yeah, but the card is... Okay, we can just keep going forever then. But regardless, I really like the decision of him to just play the Sea Scarab instead of pointing the heavy metal on Jax here, by the way. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Just really valuing getting on the board and progressing your own game plan. Also, if your opponent has a hand that has to go tall on Jax, it can punish that a bit more for like forging the Jax even more, so it makes some sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a little bit of a scrub. Oh, I guess the reason why did we pass after that? Why didn't we just play Lure or like play play Sea Scarab or something like that?
I'm not entirely sure. Potentially wanted to represent the heavy metal, but I'm not entirely sure.
Big fan of this open pass. I think it makes a lot of sense, obviously because of the mana advantage. That's something to always keep in mind in these like board-based matchups. Now I think you have a good opener to just put down the second Sea Scarab and start really turboing the deep.
So you like second Sea Scarab here, and then you want to try and use the Jaw Hunters when you have the attack token this turn to like maybe remove the quick attack is what you're thinking? And get the value out of the double Scarab?
I would even consider, I was gonna say this, I would even consider instead of doing that playing heavy metal on this scout unit because of the Wild Claw's Ferocity, because we don't have a vendor right now.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart and heads-up play.
Yeah, and like also Roji, you need to keep in mind like something that's really important in these mid-range decks is to keep unit presence, and like he's running very low on unit presence right now, which is going to be quite problematic. I'm expecting... I don't know what I'm expecting, to be honest, because Roji's hand is going to be very reliant on his top deck. Like, his top deck is going to dictate a lot of what happens. If he draws a spell, he's very unhappy.
Saurian? Yeah,
He's just-
the best top deck you could have possibly gotten the Saurian with the subtype down, being able to gas up. It's a good threat, fills your deck with threats, but
Yeah, and Lee Sin's Dragons are definitely looking for good top decks here because, like, we know, like, all the Lee Sin's Dragons players are under pressure here because both of them need to win. Both of them need to win their sets to actually give the team a win for tonight. So it's a pretty high pressure situation because, like, keep in mind the regular season this time around is only 2 weeks long. So, like, actually getting out of groups is not like something that you could recover from after having one bad week.
yeah, every week matters so much. Speaking of mattering a lot, this is a really crucial decision this turn for Rusticles on how we want to stop the development. I like the decision to play the Sea Scarab. It's quite respectful, recognizing that we're going to need the healing and the bigger body from the 3/4 later, and that if we play the Obliterate Fish, that we're really vulnerable to a combat trick.
Yeah, I think they can acknowledge, realizing that, like, you aren't actually, like, you're going down to 6 this turn, but you aren't actually at 6 HP because you have this Undergrowth and you have this Megatusk when the Megatusk goes deep, and you're also going to be able to threaten cutting off overwhelm access with this Joel Hunters. Obviously, that's not going to work out, but I do understand the idea of taking this much damage and just saying that, like, I'm going to be more respectful and I'm going to try to time my threats a little bit better to actually gain a substantial advantage on the board. We see the Bellows Breath here, top deck from Grandpa Roji, and to be honest, it looks pretty ineffective here, which is a pretty big issue, I think,
Yeah.
because, like, as I said, Roji's hand is very, very light on actual threat density.
I don't think the Bellows Breath is the big scare card here, but the big scare card here for Rusticles is the Three Sisters. Being able to become an Entomb and try and push an Overwhelm threat through is very problematic.
Yeah,
Because we are getting close to deep. We are going to be able to try and wall off our opponent, but the Entomb just removing a blocker is really problematic.
Yeah, and we can see here the Sky Splitter gaining value, although not too bad for Rusticles because he still gets to toss us a couple of cards and progress his game plan and gets closer to deep. So it's not the end of the world. I think when you pull the jacks there, you also accept that there's a pretty solid chance that doesn't go through. This Combat Cook forging this weapon and getting it impact, it's also granted a +1/+1, so when you transform it with Wildcard's Varsity, if you opt to do that, it's going to be huge. This Devourer isn't great because of the Sky Splitter.
Well, I think we're gonna combo it with the Undergrowth. I think that's why we decided to play things in the manner we did, so we could decide to combo it.
Yeah,
and why we were being so patient. I think it was very smart, and partially what I was touching on last turn, of how we had to play everything and combo everything to make sure we get max use of all the cards in hand.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's something I completely missed because I was focused on Roji's hand. Yeah, that's a very good play by Rusticles, and getting rid of the jacks is huge, right? Because it cuts off like a big overwhelm unit access, and when that's when you don't have Vengeance in your hand, that's really important to be able to do because you're already at 8 HP, so you need to be very careful about how much damage you're letting through in the next couple of turns.
Yeah, the jacks can even function as double overwhelm access in some spots as well, which can be like super problematic due to the weapon and him both giving overwhelm.
Is Jettison Undergrowth getting us deep? It definitely is, right?
I believe it should get us deep. I'm not sure exactly how much we're off, but I think we should get there with 6.
22 out of...
we're 7 off.
Ooh, are we one off?
We get there with 7 though. It's a good thing we toss 7 cards.
Undergrowth tosses 3, right? Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah, okay. So this is actually a decent situation for Rusticles. You swap the blocks though, right?
I think so.
The Devourer goes on the 10/10. Yeah, this is better.
Well, he might be valuing keeping his unit alive, potentially.
I would
crack back harder.
But the thing is that if you do it like this, the 10/10 stays alive. If you swap the blocks to 10/10, if you undergrowth it instead of the 1/2 dies, right?
Well, the undergrowth is a deal 2 toss 3, right? And deep is a +3/+3.
Okay, so it would still be at 1 HP. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Not a deep expert here. Clearly, I was forced to play this deck once for Aegis, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, me too. But I enjoyed it. That was the difference.
Yeah. The Mega Tusk here is really good though. Like obviously you don't have to play it right now because you just play Nautilus next turn. Roji isn't playing. Roji doesn't play Buried in Ice in his list, which is huge. Which is huge here. But as you said, I expect Roji's going to entomb this Nautilus. Maybe he's gonna hold it for an overall blocker, but then I don't know how much pressure is being applied this turn.
Yeah, it looks like we're gonna go for the Entomb right away. And this is actually the punish for not playing the
Mega Tusk last turn.
Yeah, the Mega Tusk last turn. Because lethal is being threatened, and we don't have any way to actually effectively stop it unless we draw a Vengeance. Or I think we tossed one of our undergrowths. So we have to draw a Vengeance, but we also just shuffled in all of the sea monsters back into our deck, which is going to make it pretty difficult to be able to hit the Vengeance, and also our Nautiluses aren't turned on.
Yeah, this is a very, very rough spot for Rusticles. Not playing around that Entomb. It's a somewhat of a shame to see that happen because like, I think if you do get that Mega Tusk down last turn and you play around the Entomb here, which I mean, I'm not saying that it was correct to do so, but it might have been obviously. I think he is in a much better position because, as you can see from Roji's hand, he doesn't really have that many threats. Like the only thing that's going on here is that there is this 10-5 overwhelm with impact that's just posing a lot of damage on us, and that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, if Roji develops, then we very much do have a game. But if there is no development, I think
not even, right? Because Devourer on the 10-5, the Sky Splitter keeps it alive, and then you swing over it, and then that's what, 1 off? Okay, that's 1 off.
You can play the healing, the Mega Tusk, and just straight up. Well, no, you should play the Devourer, but you can play the Devourer on the combat. Or the Castaway. Yeah, to make sure it dies.
Yeah.
And then block with the 7/7.
There were ways around it. I think with the Bellows Breath it might have still not mattered.
No, that's still lethal through the Sky Splitter. Yeah, you're just dead when you didn't develop the Mega Tusk.
Yeah.
And you don't draw a Vengeance.
Regardless of what happens here, I think Grandpa Roach is gonna start the set with the 1-0 over this deep deck. But let's see, just in case. We did expect some games earlier to finish, and they didn't exactly go how we expected it. So
we elect to go with the development.
all right. So what does Rusticles do here? Because there's actually like there's like different decisions here.
Yeah. So when we play the Mega Tusk, we take 2 from 1 unit, and then we take 4 from the Wild Claw, so that doesn't work. When we play the Lifesteal,
the Mega Tusk keeps us alive.
the Mega Tusk does work. My fault, because we healed 3, so we go to 8, and then we take 2, and then we take 4, and then Sky Splitter pushes 1, and then if they play Bellows Breath, we can remove one of the other units. Bellows Breath removes one of their units as well. Yeah. I think when we play Mega Tusk.
Yeah, this is a little rough. And honestly, like, I don't completely blame Rusticles for going for this line. Roji's already used to 2 copies of Sky Splitter this game, and there is no copies of Elixir or Catch. Catch would work, rather. Catch, neither of them would have worked as well. So there was only the 3rd Sky Splitter really that could have stopped this. So it's rough. And maybe the Mega, because we were talking about the Mega Tusk, but maybe the Mega Tusk was playing into something else that was worse for whatever reason, but we just didn't consider it because we have caster vision. So yeah, this is pretty unfortunate. Ends up being pretty rough. We elect to play this Bellows Breath though. Does this save us somehow because of the?
I think it does.
Yeah, I think so too. Because we go to 8, and then we
Go
block.
to 8.
Yeah. We're safe. We're safe here because so we block down the Omen Hawk, the Castaway, and the Wild Claw's Ferocity unit, Alpha Wild Claw. We take. All right, Rusticles, you got an rope.
There you go. There you go, King.
Yeah. So we hit this, and yeah, we survive at 2, and at this point, we have completely stabilized because Nautilus is coming down.
And Ikato 2-0 Cephalopod, the GOAT. How does he do it? Everyone should go and check out his channel.
Yeah, you guys can go watch the VOD of that set. It was very fast, I'll have you know. Actually, it was maybe so fast you won't be able to see it. So, just be aware of that.
The top deck.
That's huge, right? Because we get to just... Yeah, okay, Roji being a very nice person to us as casters and not letting us sit through garbage time. Saying, yeah, I lost this game. Let's just move on.
Roji respects casters, and that's why we love him. So it looks like the bans were Shen Jarvan and Samira Varys, which makes sense as these are both probably the most anti-mid-range decks in each player's lineup, and if you haven't figured out by now, it's all mid-range and some aggro decks, kind of.
But like also cut gamer, like Samira got deleted from the game and we still banned her. Oh my god. Like I'm not saying it's wrong or right or whatever, but it just looks so wrong to me based on like my perception. Because Samira is not a card. Like she doesn't do anything anymore.
Yeah. I mean, that's my opinion as well, but that's a conversation for another day. Today, we get to talk about Janna versus Jaxorn, Janna CS in particular. And I think this matchup should be a little bit Janna favored. Jaxorn, they did get the Omen Hawk, but they're not really fond of blocking elusives, and especially on a version without Verdanice, they're not going to like playing into the CS card.
I mean, when this deck showed up last meta, like towards the end, it actually showed up as a reaction to Jaxorn becoming so prominent. Because, as mentioned earlier when we were going through the decks, what this deck is doing is it's going wide and it's buffing a lot of units, which is something that like mid-range will struggle with because like you make your units bigger than mid-range sized units. And the other thing that's also like particularly problematic for Jaxorn, despite this Omen Hawk buff, is the elusive density that the deck has.
Yeah, this deck tends to play, it's on 9 elusives, and then if you flip Janna, that becomes 12, which is way more than Jaxorn is comfortable dealing with usually.
Alright, from production we can see Quaco has defeated Talon Shark 2-0, which means that regardless of what happens this set, because of the incident that we had previously discussed with you guys on earlier here, Swain's Flock have defeated Lee Sin's Dragons for this week. And that also, I believe, means, because I had checked the standings earlier, that it is a 2-1 start this week for Swain's Flock and 0-3 start for Lee Sin's Dragons.
Oh yeah, 0-3 for Lee Sin's Dragons. Yeah, a bit rough for them. But 2-1 start is definitely a very strong performance from Swain's Flock, especially when you consider the one team that they lost to, which we will be getting to see later, is considered one of the strongest teams in their group, if not the tournament in general. So that'll be fun to get into later. But speaking of this game, going double Broadwing into Janna with the CS in hand is a very strong opener for this deck. Especially when there's going to be not a very powerful turn 4 play for this Jaxorn player, which is really going to delay their ability to pressure this Jax flip.
Yeah, and this Janna comes down and she's just completely unchecked. Like, if Roji wants to deal with her, he's gonna have to play the stamina dedication in this fish fight, which is like not awful, but it is a lot of mana that goes into it. And it also freely allows, like, I would consider passing because after that line where you remove Janna, you can pull the Jax and kill it. Whereas here, what Roji can do is he can play Sky Splitter plus Fish Fight. And that actually, like, you're basically giving him value for the trick, right? Because the trick is doing two things at once.
Mm-hmm. But I'm fine with this attack because we're always going to have to trade our Broadwing into this Jax, and we have the CS in it. So we're really just saying, I want to go wide, I want to attack you, I don't want my units to trade 1-for-1. And if you're going to kill this Janna, fine, because look how much mana it's going to cost Roji to kill this Janna and then re-equip his Jax and apply pressure. And like, look how little HP Rusticles is losing while he has this ability to apply such a massive attack on 6 or 7.
I would have considered just using the other mode of fish fights just so that we don't use that one extra mana and just apply pressure this time by developing the Saurian, because the issue I had with this line is that like when your Janna, like from Rusticles said, is like when your Janna dies there and we were like pretty light on value, we could have ended up like running out of gas if Roji had applied more pressure by developing that Saurian. But with the way these draws have panned out and the actions that were being taken by both sides, this has become very favorable for Rusticles, because now the team is going to come down. The Cloudwinder has allowed us to snowball card advantage. We're going to be drawing 3 cards on our next round start. There's just a lot going on. The one thing though is because we are at 9 HP and because that there is a Wild Class Ferocity in Grandpa Roji's hand, we are on a bit of a tight block. The double Acorn is, however, insane.
Yeah, so we're going to have the ability to play out both of these Acorns, take a crack in with the Elusives, and then make this champion strength down to 6 mana.
Yeah, I think we're about to witness complete annihilation. I think so.
Yeah, I think we need to play this. Okay, just hedging. Okay, no, I can respect it.
I think it's fine. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
You can see Roji. He knows what's coming. The poor guy. He's passing. Oh, and we see production with the puff cap.
Puff caps in deck.
Yeah,
so what's gonna happen here, right, is we're gonna champion strength. Roji's gonna lose his entire board. He's gonna freeze the Teemo, and he's gonna be on 5. And he's gonna be in very much a scramble to try and get out of this game, but he's gonna have this issue where he isn't actually going to be able to present a board that can really threaten a lethal for 2 tokens, and because of that, I don't think this is a winnable game state for Roji.
Yeah, Roji, because all of the blocks are forced, I think there's just no way out. Yeah, we see the swing coming through. Getting in with all of the units, the Broadwings obviously pulling the other units. It's just an extremely like this is why this is a great matchup for Janna Teemo. Like you don't actually like, as long as you have CS, it's just very easy to apply enough pressure to win the game.
They just have such a hard time dealing with these elusives. I mean, like, look how much damage Rusticles pushed. He just attacked with 2 elusives for his swing on turn 6. And he's pretty much killing this turn.
Yeah, the stacks, as you said, the 3 sisters. It's just like completely unwinnable, right? Like there's nothing he can draw. The orange isn't flipped, so it's just completely over. Hold on. Castaway does not give us enough mana to cast Wild Class Ferocity, right?
No, because the only card where we would have enough mana to cast Wild's Claw Ferocity is if we drew a 1-drop, but then it's not big enough to actually lethal.
Alright, so with that being said, this set is already over. This was the fastest set of the night. Rusticles 2-0 against Grandpa Roji. So again, for our 3rd consecutive set of the night in a row, we see a clean 3-0 from one side. Rusticles' team wins Flock, or rather Quacko's team to be more accurate, proceeds with a 2-1 finish to this week. Very good start. Not so much for the other team. Pretty rocky. We'll see how they end up doing next week, but it's not looking too good.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things close out. 2-1 is a really solid start. Like you were saying, it's a 2-week league, so coming out with a 2-1 start puts you in a really good position to be able to close it up and lock things up next week. Especially if the team that you lost to manages to also go 2-1.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with that being said, unfortunately, this was pretty fast. I was kind of looking forward to casting the Samira deck, which we didn't get to see because I got banned. I was even looking forward to cast Aatrox. I was just looking for some variety, but at least we got deep. I know someone in the production right now is really happy that we got to see Deep win a game, so I hope.
Fanboy.
Yeah, one deep fanboy, exactly. So, with that being said, unfortunately, we're gonna have to kick it off to a break, I believe, and we will be back later with our final set of the night. But believe me, this was the one you don't want to miss, because this has a team that I think everyone's looking forward to. I know I certainly am. We'll be watching Trundle's Trolls going up against Garen's Vanguard.
Yeah, stick around. It's about to be troll time.
Tell me where do I go? Tell me where do I take us? Your heart is starting to slow. May the water be safe. As I dive in, bloodstains washing under deep down waves.
Welcome back, everyone, for the last time tonight. We are back again with this draft league, week one. This is our final set of the night. We're going to be watching, I believe, Trandostroll against Garen's Vanguard. This is a very highly anticipated set for me personally. We may or may not have flipped a coin on who we get to watch. However, the coin landed in a very nice place, I think, for the viewers, because I think we're going to be watching someone who personally I would consider probably not necessarily the best pick, but the best player in the league, and that would be Drizoth. Cutgamer, take it away.
Yeah, so we're going to be watching Drizoth versus Rokiden, or Kanan, that some people might know better as, which is going to be a really exciting matchup. Drizoth is one of the best players in America. Like Hash was saying, he's maybe not the most valuable when it comes to every aspect of things you can value in an Aegis player, but I think if you're talking about individual player strength, he probably is the best player in this league. So it's going to be very exciting to watch him, because we're going to get to watch him up against Rokiden or Kanan, who's one of the best APAC players, definitely like the best APAC player that interacts with the English community.
Yeah, so two very highly accomplished players. Both of these players have gone really far in big right major events, and both of them, I mean, Drissal's already qualified for the world. Oh, my turn cut off. Okay, yeah, I think I'm back.
Yeah, I think you're.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Good. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry about that. Cut out for a second. Yeah, so I was saying, Drizoth is like world's qualified. He's gonna be at the World Championship later this year because he won a world qualifier earlier this year. And then Kanan also, Rosiden, someone who has been topping very consistently throughout ever since the beginning of LoR, pretty much. So, very, very excited to see these two players go at it against each other. Let's just go on to their lineups and look at the decks that they're playing.
Yeah, so if you've been with us tonight, you're probably going to be pretty familiar with these decks. It's an amalgamation of decks we've already seen. And starting with Drizoth, we have the Janna and Nyla. So this is a templeless version. The one interesting thing that Drizoth is doing is where most people are playing things like the Tide Dancer or the Elefante as top end, Drizoth actually elects to go with two Eye of Nagakoboros as his top end. Just some consistent draw to keep cycling, and it puts a unit on the board.
Yeah, I'm not like 100% sure if this is a good idea or not. Honestly, I'm going to be very, very, very clear with this, because in my head, there's going to be a lot of spots where you're drawing into fleeting cards, and you draw like a fleeting Eye of Nagakoboros, and you're like, ah, god damn it, this is a fleeting Eye of Nagakoboros, and it's like a pretty heavy mana cost. Obviously, on the other hand, a lot of times you're gonna be updrafting it, and then you'll draw it back, and then it'll be like a 4-mana Ivaneka Koboros. Sometimes it'll be even a 3-mana Ivaneka Koboros, and that's also obviously very, very good because it's a 2/2 as well as drawing 2 cards. Not sure how good it actually is, but it is an interesting inclusion. It's not something that I've seen before, so at least there's something unique if we get to watch this deck.
Yeah, definitely something exciting and worth keeping an eye on if we get to see the John and Isla, but if it's been the trend of most sets tonight, it'll be banned. Moving on to the next deck, we have Ash LeBlanc, looking pretty standard, much more like the traditional Ash LeBlanc that we saw people like MTux bringing, as opposed to the Weapon Master Saurian variant that we saw out of Robo. The main difference between this version and the one MTux was playing was in this version we're electing to go for the Darkened Spear instead of the utility of the Explorer.
Yeah, this is like a very, very stock list right now. It's pretty much just playing all the big deck buff cards, because that's what the deck is thriving on right now, like one of the few things at least. It's playing 2 Harsh Winds, 3 Brittle Steel as your freezes, double Icefield Archer as well, which is like one of the best development punishes in the game right now. Obviously Sky Splitter, the best combat ring in the game. I'm surprised to see 2 copies of it actually. I think it's an instant 3-off in this deck. Like, I think Sky Splitter is an instant 3-off in pretty much every deck that gets to play it, so... it's an interesting decision, not sure why, but I'm sure there's some his reasons. Moving on to the last deck, it's Jax Ornn. Oh wow, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, like, I don't know about the Sharesies, I don't know about the Parts Made Whole, I'm not 100% sure on these cards, but I respect and I actually really like the 2 Brittle Steel. I think it's a good option this meta. I think it's actually a very good call this meta.
Yeah, the 2 Brittle Steel is interesting. I think the entire idea behind Jizoth's lineup of really streamlining these decks and making these decks a lot cheaper and more efficient is a really interesting call on how to attack this meta. And it's a trend we see across all of his decks. So I'm really excited to see how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of like variety in this Jax Ornn list compared to the others, so it will be interesting to see. Moving on to Russiden's lineup, so we have Seraphine Janna Ionia. So it's the second time we see this deck today. Card Gamer, I am sorry that you have to watch this deck again, but you are gonna need to talk to me a little bit about this.
Yeah, so I guess I can talk about Temple a little bit more now that we have the time. So this is Seraphine Janna. Janna is a very good card. Playing Seraphine as the payoff because saying Karma is a bit too awkward, I think makes a lot of sense. We've already talked about how good the Ionia tools can be against a lot of this mid-range meta. That I'm all cool about, I'm all for. My issue is I'm just not a big fan of this Temple card. I think Bar ends up being a lot more effective. I think the way Temple asks to be played is really awkward, and by the time it asks to generate the value, it just asks to be on the board so much longer than a card like Bar does, and it's also way worse when it gets removed instantly. So I'm just really not a big fan of a build like this.
What do you think of the fact that there is no set in this list?
I think it makes sense when you play Temple, but like I said, I don't think you're supposed to be playing Temple. So.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense. Moving on, we have Shen J4. Shen J4 every single lineup, every single set tonight, pretty much. Not every single lineup, but every single set tonight is that Shen J4. It's the most broad deck, so obviously that makes a lot of sense. Honestly, I am just like in awe and like in a little bit of shock that the deck is so popular and that it's been such a highly broad deck this week. I mean, it makes sense given the field and the meta, but it's just like a perception thing, I guess. A little bit of bias against the deck. I feel like it's so over-reliant on Shen, and we've seen that be the case in a few games earlier today. So, the deck's strong and the deck has a lot of like good things going for it in the meta. I just worry about bringing it into like a big tournament, but obviously Aegis is not a big tournament that like is not gonna require you to play like 8 rounds a day or something like that. So it's a lot more justifiable, especially when you have a specific niche you want to target.
Yeah, most definitely. It fits really well in an Aegis type niche where you're allowed to bring protection, and it hits this meta very hard. But it'll really be interesting to see what the representation is like when we move into the open compared to these Aegis events.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, nothing else to say about Shen J4. Well, this one is interesting though. I want to talk about Pantheon Varus a little bit because Varus is a card that like was really good before the Momentous bug. Momentous got bug fixed, and we still really haven't found Varus a home quite yet. And you would expect him to be decent right now just because of Unforgiving Cult being such a good mid-range killer. The problem, however, is as someone who has tried Varus quite a bit this patch, is I think there is just a consistency issue, and sometimes the power level feels a little too low. Like the Varus one-shot game plan of Varus decks is not that consistent right now because of said mid-range. You need to like pre-commit expands, and then there's counterplay to that. Also, it pinches your mana harder. Or like you need to take things slower, which means your opponent gets one more token to kill you. However, with Pantheon as a win condition in this version, you'll be able to take control of boards way more than other Varus decks like Jax Varus or Akshan Varus, right? So maybe this is the way to go. Who knows?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Pantheon also tends to be very powerful in these mid-range metas, just getting so big with the Faded, being able to outgrow almost anything on the board, and hitting keywords that can blow out a game is very powerful. But getting into bans, what are you expecting to see from each player, Hash?
Honestly, I would not be surprised if Drisoth just bans... Hold on, what does Drisoth ban? Shen J4, right? I think he bans Shen J4, and I think Rosidan bans Jananila.
Yeah, I would expect to see a Shenjay 4 and a Jananila ban. I could also potentially see the world where we're banning Pantheon, but I would definitely lean towards Shenjay 4, and I don't really think there's any other ban for Garen's Vanguard than Jananila, and it seems like Rosidan agrees, and now we just have to see what Drizoth decides on.
Alright, 1 for 1, 2 for 2. There we go. Makes a lot of sense. We are either geniuses or they are in the call. Who knows? Recycled joke. With that being said, who is favored this set? I would be leaning towards... I would lean towards Drisoth, because I think getting Pantheon Varus through is going to be difficult.
Is Pantheon Varus supposed to be losing against Jaxorn?
Let me think.
I agree the Ashe matchup is hard.
The list Drisoth is playing, I think so. Like, I think the parts is very good in this matchup. I think the Brittles are pretty decent in this matchup because everything before Pantheon just gets shut down completely. And then also, Sherzies is pretty good at playing around Unforgiving Cold in a lot of spots. I'm not 100% sure if Jaxorn is favored or Pantheon Varus is favored. But my instinct tells me that if you get the Jax down early and you just go for beatdown, it's really hard for Pantheon Varus to actually deal with.
Mm-hmm. It'll certainly be an interesting matchup to see play out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, looking forward.
I think
with that being said, we can start this set off with the first match, which is Ashe LeBlanc against Seraphine Jana, which is not the greatest matchup for Ashe LeBlanc, but we saw earlier today, I believe it was the first set of the night actually, where it was Ashe LeBlanc against Ione PNZ. And what you need to do in that matchup is to just turbo Reputation, apply pressure, draw your Incisive Tactician, because that's the only way you're going to actually be able to kill them. But if you do get there, you actually win.
Yeah. So, we should be getting into the game real quick. Yep, and we can see, again, we see the Seraphine played on 2 in this matchup, but this time, because there's no 5-1, and also because of the spell Seraphine created, the pressure is a lot lower. And having a start like this on the Ashe side into a spell deck like Seraphine is going to be the start that Seraphine needs to be able to not fall behind in tempo early and really be able to just take over the game.
Yeah, I may be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure Drizoth kept both Obenhawks and the Incisive Tactician. And whether that is correct or wrong is a different conversation, but we see that biting him back. Because he's drawing into the wrong half of his deck here. He's drawing into Harshman's, which is a complete brick in this matchup. He's drawing Bloody Business a little too late, a little too early rather. A 4-mana Bloody Business is really bad, and you don't even have a target for it right now, specifically in this matchup. So I find Assessor a good card in this matchup. Too early, same issue as Incisive Tactician. Like, honestly, a lot of this game, like, if you wanted to call it aggressively, a lot of people would say this game is already over based on hand comparison. But the next draw will like dictate a lot of what this game is going to be like, because there is the chance that Rosidan puts down this Jana, and Drizoth's only option is to pass.
Yeah, it'll certainly be interesting. Getting a playable card is definitely nice. The fact it's just a 4-mana 6/5 that draws 1, you generally want to get a bit more value out of this Assessor, but it is a powerful threat on the board.
Yeah,
I think
it's gonna tax a couple of jump blockers and a little bit of removal, perhaps, but it's definitely not what Dressop was looking for.
I think if you're Rosid in here, you probably are just forced to play this Drana. Yeah, I think getting rid of the Telstone and the Discord makes a lot of sense. Setting up for your next turn with a spot removal can be really powerful.
Yeah, and I mean, this open attack is beautiful for Rosidon's side, right? He's just like, oh yeah, great. My opponent did basically nothing. I'm just gonna slam this Temple. And hey, Kadyaman, I know you don't like Temple, but because our opponent basically drew a fake hand, this card's actually just putting in work right now.
Yes, but like, Bar just does the same thing here.
Yeah, I'm not arguing against that. I'm just saying that Temple's still good here.
Yeah, that is fair. It is a draw engine, but like,
LeBlanc just a little bit too late. But like, if there is a way back in, it is through her.
Yeah. The LeBlanc does have the double Omen Hawk buff as well, so it is going to be very difficult to remove with spot removal under most circumstances, but we do have a Gale plus a Stump Fume this turn, or we can even just recall this LeBlanc. Oh, this LeBlanc has one Omen Hawk buff? Okay, this LeBlanc is easy to remove, I lied.
I mean, with Caster Vision, we know even if it had one more buff, it wouldn't have matters because of Howling Gale, right? Yeah, this is looking really, really rough for yourself. I'm not gonna lie, just because like we weren't able to apply enough early pressure. Squeezing in this bloody business in this spot makes a lot of sense. I think that's completely fine. It also buys Dressel some amount of time because the Seraphine like can't just flip on the next token and then snowball with the game on Rosidon's next attack token. However, I still don't see a way with these draws for Dressel to actually convert this into Omen. We're gonna start with Assessor here. We draw LeBlanc. Okay, that's a start. There's a Mystic Shot in Rosidon's hand, so the LeBlanc isn't gonna put that much work in. Fortunately, we just have to kind of slam her and accept the consequences. Waking Sands is a very good hit off of Seraphine, despite not even being that necessary in this spot. We elect to open instead, so... I mean... It's not looking great. It's honestly not looking great.
Yeah, it's a really tough position for Dressel to actually be able to claw his way out of. He just doesn't really have an effective way to apply pressure on this board.
Like, there is a 6-mana Incisive Tactician here, but like even that is not that impressive in this position.
I mean, it just gets dealt with so easily.
Exactly, because the swing isn't like the board that it's rallying with isn't that good, right? So just really deductive. Okay, we do rip Song Spinner here, which means that like does it mean anything actually? Not really, no. Especially with these hits, like Shield Vault is huge. Vigor is not bad. I probably would elect to go for Magical Journey actually, just because of how much draw we're gonna be getting. Either way, it's a pretty comfortable spot for Rosidon. We might already be in garbage time actually.
Yeah, I think we are. Both champions are flipping pretty much this turn, which is why we're doing this, right? We're just going to flip both champs and then completely take over the game with this Song Spinner.
Yeah, that's definitely what we're aiming for. Seraphine's at 5 out of 9, but that doesn't really matter. She's going to get to flip this turn. I believe so, yeah. With the updrafts, she definitely gets to flip this turn, so not sure what you're supposed to do here from the actual LeBlanc side. Like, you're going to play this Reckless Starfire, you're going to play LeBlanc, you're going to attack next turn. If you get it, you're going to attack next turn, opponent's going to use cards, you're going to rally, and then, depending on the state of your board, you get to swing again, but none of that's actually really meaningful, I believe, because there's just so much removal from Rosidon's side.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like, Drazot's just playing this game out so he doesn't get fined by his teammates, you know? Like, hey, what'd you scoop, man? That's not cool. But, like, this would be the craziest game tonight where we've seen someone, like, lose from a spot where we're like, yeah, this game's over.
Yeah, I would agree. The odds of this Sunken Temple just, like, updrafting into blanks is completely low, right? Like, it's very, very unlikely.
Especially when you like think about the Seraphine and the Janna flip and how your pretty much entire deck is new, and Janna is going to be able to you're going to draw like an extra card plus any card that's a blank this turn that you don't want to play. You can hold and it shuffles next turn. You double everything with Seraphine. It's just there's so much value. Like, yeah, okay. He was also willing to accept the fine at this point, and honestly, respects him for that.
Yeah, I mean, when Seraphine flips, just kind of takes over the game, right? Like, people talk about how Karma flips and Seraphine is just very similar to that, but happens.
Baby Karma.
Exactly. So, Russidon with a pretty strong start for the Garen's Vanguard team, 1-0 up, but this was always a bad matchup for either of Dressel's decks, I believe. So. It was kind of a write-off. Now we get to actually see him play into Pantheon Varus, and that will be a lot more interesting because one, I mean, I think Ash is favored in this matchup, but it still has a lot of play, and there is a lot of decision making. Like this is the kind of mid-range mirror where both decks are kind of on equal footing. So it'll be fun to see how this goes.
Yeah, it'll definitely be exciting to see. Speaking of the reasons why Ash is very favored, though, they do have the Brittle Seal from the jump. You were talking about that when we were looking at the deck list, how powerful the Brittle Seal can be for shutting down these Pantheon attacks, these Pantheon Varus attacks. And we have the 5-1, which in this matchup essentially functions as a 2-mana Vengeance a lot of the time.
Not only that, it's a card that you have to play into in so many spots. Like if Drizzle plays the 5-1 here, right? Like for example, also the 6-3 LeBlanc is huge. But if Drizzle plays the 5-1 here, Russidon has to delay his Pantheon progress by 1 turn unless he wants to sack a unit into it, which is a big deal.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think it makes sense to play the unit on this turn, just valuing the proc this turn because of the Pantheon timing, really wanting to have the Pantheon flipped on 7 for that token.
Yeah, I think taking the pass here is completely fine, to be honest. The one thing that is worth considering is that, like, yeah, you are giving Russidon the ability to put Wandering Shepherd on the Saga Seeker, which is exactly what's about to happen. But I think given that, like, Dresov does care about the fact that there is no Pantheon proc on turn 2 because he doesn't want for Pantheon to flip on his turn 6 attack, right? Because he's likely looking to develop in that on that token. So I understand the idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. That's one thing about these Pantheon matchups, especially at a high level, is there's this mini game of when do you need your Pantheon flipped and getting Pantheon triggers, and both players can end up taking some cheeky passes and maneuver around the action economy in really interesting ways to try and pull a fast one over on the other one. And yeah, like Hash was saying, that's a little thing you can do to try and give yourself the potential to have a better develop on turn 6.
Yeah, exactly. And with that being said as well, we saw the Forsaken Bakai come down, and the Forsaken Bakai did pull a Pantheon, which is huge. Because one of the issues Pantheon Varus has as a deck as well is it's not exactly what Shen is to Shen J4, but because Varus as a card is so vulnerable to all of the mid-range answers that the meta has against it right now, what ends up happening is that you do end up needing the Pantheon to close out a lot of your games. And being able to guarantee the fact that that is happening this game because we drew it is really, really good for Russidon.
Mm-hmm. And playing very disciplined on these trades, really understanding how to play to his outs in this matchup, of just like culling the board and just trying to make sure we get to the Pantheon on the right trigger. Willing to give up units and not use tricks if it means he's trading into these powerful 5-1s that we talked about being like 2-mana Vengeances.
I think there's an argument that the preemptive Brittle Steel on the Wandering Shepherd was incorrect just because Russidon hadn't procced Pantheon that turn yet. So if Russidon clicks OK, all the units are gone. So there's no way for you to actually do that, right?
Yeah, it is interesting, but they're very likely to have another unit and to be able to play a trick on it or like end up equipping it right.
Yeah, that's also valid.
The benefit of the upside of having the 5/1 is very high.
That's true. Preserving a 5/1 is important. I think like the amount of pressure we're able to apply with our attack token drastically changes when we don't have it. So that's reasonable. Looking at what's happening in the following turn, like this turn 6. Looking at this game state, it's an interesting question here of whether Rustin is supposed to play on Ending Wave this turn, I think.
Yeah. It is interesting. I would imagine you end up not playing it and just playing your Pantheon this turn because you don't actually value the barrier that highly next turn, and you just spend this turn equipping. But I could be mistaken. It looks like that is what we're going to elect to do, and then we have the ability to either wave aggressively next turn, or if we draw good plays next turn, we can save wave to try and find defensive outs when our opponent attacks again on their turn 8.
Yeah, and obviously something that's not can't really stop here is this Pantheon flip, and we've seen Pantheon for a while now in this game, and we know how much that can just completely take over the game. So Pantheon flips here. Let's see what keywords we hit. We're looking for Spell Shield. We're looking for something like potentially Regen. Is also a pretty underrated keyword in this kind of matchup.
Quick Attack can be very good.
We get Fearsome.
So Spell Shield is good. We don't have Quick Attack, but we can use Quick Attack from the weapon, right? To make sure we're safe in combat, and that plus Spell Shield makes it pretty hard to interact with this Pantheon effectively.
Yeah, this Pantheon is pretty good just because of Spell Shield mainly. We also see in Drissel's hand there is no way to pop it, so it's gonna be able to apply a lot of pressure and deal a lot of damage. Like if this Pantheon goes unchecked, Rosidon has lethal on turn 9 essentially.
Yeah. The Pantheon, being able to give it the Quick Attack, which was a very smart pick earlier from the Weapon Master, and then having the Strike, having the Wave to dig if you really need to, and Wave plus Strike can also draw into the Vars for the turn 9 token, means as long as we can make it to 9, we're very safe. We didn't hit Lifesteal on Pantheon, but it shouldn't be a big deal considering we have 18 HP.
Yeah, Lifesteal is often, unless you're playing against like a mid-range deck that's a lot faster than you, Lifesteal is often an overrated keyword for Pantheon in these kinds of spots. Like, you would much rather have keywords that preserve the Pantheon on the board as well as possible. Stuff like Regen, stuff like Tough, stuff like Quick Attack, because then, like, blocking for your opponent becomes really hard. These kinds of keywords, even sometimes Fury is really good, just because it keeps scaling and scaling and scaling every time it blocks or attacks. That being said, as you said, there is no worry with no lifesteal here. Like, it's completely fine for Rosidon. The one thing I am trying to think about here is like, how does Drissel pull out of this? Definitely with his current like hand and board. The line that I'm looking at is slamming Anaka and then doubling the Anaka with the mirror image. We know that that's gonna likely get stopped by Furious Welder from Rosidon's side.
There is one important thing to note right now, Hash, which is when we do this block, we're going to have our Pantheon in Brittle Steel range, and then we can use the Brittle Steel to pop the Spell Shield, and then we can strike off the Anaka next turn when we play it.
Yeah,
but we can't go double Anaka next turn if we do that.
Yeah, we can. Also,
we can kill the Pantheon this turn. We can attempt to as well, like doing it this turn. But again, we can't do double Anaka next turn.
All right, hold on. So this is an interesting spot. There's other sides decides to take the full damage. If you attempt to kill the Pantheon in that spot, you get blown out by Furious Welder, right? Which is pretty problematic.
Oh, yeah, that is true. You do get blown out by Furious Welder. You might be supposed to Brittle Steel last turn, though. Not only because of mana reasons, but also it's very scary if you're relying on this Brittle Steel to pop the Spell Shield to not do it when Pantheon can very easily grow with Fated to 4 HP.
Yeah, I can definitely see that argument. Like using the brittle steel just now because you can never use it later. Like it makes a lot of sense. One thing I will say here is this only line really looks like playing Anaka. And we do have Furious Welder, but we now also have Shield Vault, which means that like it's actually very hard for Rosidon to not find lethal next turn, right?
Yeah, as long as we don't play... Yeah, because we play the Shield Vault, right? And then even if they attempt to remove the Pantheon, we have the Wielder, so this Pantheon stays on the board. I don't think our opponent is ever threatening lethal, right? Because we can just take 3, and then we can win on the crackback, I believe. Especially because we can choose to draw into Varus with the Unending Wave. That'll be our third cultist spell.
The Wielder draws Varus, I'm pretty sure.
You might be right, I might have miscounted.
We've definitely played 2 Momentuses this game. So yeah, we expect to see the Wielder come down here. Okay, we haven't seen apparently.
One Momentous.
Yeah, one Momentous. That's my bad. Okay, so I mean you're still not wrong. Like the Unending Wave draws Varus, so it's obviously a good spot for Rosidon. There is a Harsh Winds, so it's not a horrible spot for. Ooh, the X-Band.
That's a crazy draw.
Yeah, like you might just okay. We slam the Horazi. Drisov needs to find Harsh Winds now, and even that isn't good enough, right?
Yeah, Harsh Wind. You can Harsh Winds now, right? And then they can just buff Pantheon up to 7/7 again because of the Horazi, right? You can also Pale to make Pantheon 8, which isn't exactly lethal, but it is quite problematic.
Okay, actually, there is a way out here for Drissoth because it's not lethal this turn. So as you said, you go for. Oh, do you go for Pale on Horazi to make it an 8/8? Is that better than just pressing OK here? Not sure. Okay,
I'm not sure why we made another. Oh, it's a fearsome. Pantheon is fearsome. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, so we have to make the other Anaka to try and make this. Our Ashe is flipped.
Definitely close. Like if she's not flipped, she's either one off of, or when she swings, she flips.
Yeah, she should flip herself. So like Ashe into Tactician isn't out.
That won't cut it. And the develop here, you get hit by Shield Vault again. It's just too much.
Really brutal. Shield Vault. They have the Unending Wave for more gas for the Varus, and yeah, Jogoth calling it there.
Yeah, we see what Pantheon does in mid-range matters, right? Like he just sometimes when the Pantheon gets unchecked, which is not something that Ashe LeBlanc consistently like. It's not something that Ashe LeBlanc is always not capable of doing. Like a lot of the times, it is able to deal with Pantheon. In this case, it wasn't, and we see what happens when Pantheon runs free in mid-range mirrors. Like especially with the right keywords, and right keywords isn't an implication that you would need to get lucky. There are so many keywords you can hit that would have a really big impact on the game state in a mid-range mirror. So Pantheon just putting in a lot of work and showing why, like. There's a lot of mid-range decks, so Pantheon might actually have a place because it's one of those anti-mid-range decks. Whether it's Varus, whether it's somewhere else, who knows? But Pantheon, the card itself, is very powerful, and we really saw that being showcased at the previous game. So it was a good set to watch and a good set to wrap up the night with. Pretty happy with what I've seen to date, honestly. I'm really excited to cast the future of this league.
Yeah, I mean, everything has definitely lived up to the hype. We've had a lot of really exciting sets tonight. Every set we ended up watching ended up being like really one-sided in the end. So hopefully they end up being a little bit closer in terms of like the game score and all of that next week. We get some really exciting things coming down to the wire of who's going to make it in and who's not. But speaking of who's going to make it in and who's not, we have another set going on. So this is one of the other games between Trundle Trolls and Garen's Vanguards. We have Cess King versus Methodical. We're coming into the last game right here, folks, the Jax Warren Mirror, and it looks like things are coming down right to the wire.
Well, nothing like the production taking us to a game that is about to present lethal for us. We see Methodical. I don't know how this game went, but we see this Entube going off. This Entube is going to be responded with this fantastic lure that doesn't actually do anything.
Just seeing if we would have hit the out.
And Methodical takes the win, which means that overall the set is a 1-1 since Rasidan beat Trisov, and now based on this game score that we have on the screen, Methodical has defeated Aegis King, which means that it all comes down to, I believe, Rogio
versus
Alexander, yeah. And I wonder how that set is going. Maybe we can pull that up in a few minutes, in a few moments. Not 100% sure what we're doing, but yeah, not really much to say here because it was really, really swift. We can see, once again, there was a Shenjie 4 in this set. We just cannot escape Shenjie 4.
Shenjie 4 is everywhere. I would say it's Eternal, but it's a standard deck. It's not Eternal.
Shenjie 4 is the mid-range deck that Ruben was playing in the basement in 2017 when he had paper cards for LoR, you know?
Yeah, it's in the Excel document, Shenjie 4. It's OG.
It's like you played LoR on the Excel document back then, and it was Shenjie 4. Ash LeBlanc as well, honestly, you could have thrown right in there, right? These two are just a blast from the past.
Okay, so we're getting into our last set, and this is really exciting, actually, because if Garen's Vanguards manage to win this, then this division, this North division, is going to have every team, with the exception of Lee Sin's Dragons, being 2-1. So it's going to be very tight going into next week.
Nice.
Hopefully, in a minute, we can figure out what the actual game score is. Based on the timer, I would guess this is the game 3, but it's Karma's set. You never know.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I would like to think it's not game 1, but it might be game 2, might be game 3. You don't actually know. Alexander looking in a pretty commanding spot. Okay, they are in game 3, and it is looking like pretty nearing the end game. Yeah, Roger gassing out here with the momentous draw, Unforgiving Cold. Again, a big issue that you will commonly see with these decks that include freeze into decks that are Ionia is that the freezes are very, very massive bricks. A lot of these mid-range decks have good threats into Ionia, into Ionia, but the problem is that they have wrong half of deck issues. Sometimes you just draw freeze and it doesn't really do much. Here, it is stalling the game out a little bit, but it's not actually applying any meaningful progression of the game plan of the mid-range deck. This Karma gets to come down unchecked, gets to do what she wants. With that being said, we are playing Karma for her, so she's basically doing nothing. But, Alexander just has free reign here, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Karma just acting as a draw engine, which is somewhat relevant in terms of being able to actually end the game. And yeah, with this breeze, it's going to be very difficult for anything to actually get done. Karma's going to double these recalls to go through any spell shield that they could even have for the Pantheon, which the Pantheon would be massive. You would have every keyword, but it just can't actually go through the Karma. And that's going to be Trundle's Trolls coming through, cleaning it up. 2-1, not a 3-0. Exciting stuff, 2-1. We love to see it. And they're going to be heading out their division at 3-0, I believe. So a really great showing from them.
I believe they're the only team this week that has a 3-0 finish to the week, but I might be mistaken.
Yeah, the other group may have a team that's 3-0. I'm not sure. We'll have to get back to you on that. But they are the one team from the North Division, out of Garen's Vanguards, Swain's Flock, Trundle's Trolls, Lee Sin Dragons. They're the only team to be 3-0, and they did it without their captain playing this week, so big showing from them.
Yeah, I mean, we if you remember the draft show, Arax was very, very, very happy. I think he found the hack. He just sits down and lets the picks that he picked do their thing, and as we can see, it's paying off. They have a 3-0 start. Again, the season is really short, so every week matters a lot. So a 3-0 start is huge. It's massive. You are extremely, extremely ahead right now.
Yeah. You're almost locked for the playoffs at this point. Like you were saying, Hash, I understand why Arax was emoting on the draft show. He should be happy with these guys. It's a good team.
Yeah, it's definitely a good team. I remember I was like a little skeptical, and then over the course of the week, the more I thought about it, I was messaging you about this. I was like, I actually think this team is going to be quite good this season. So looking forward to how this league ends up going. But for now, unfortunately, it's been a really long broadcast, but we have no more sets to show you guys. It's been a really, really fun night. We've seen a lot of mid-range. I think if you took a shot every time we said the word mid-range on this broadcast, you would probably be dead. So I hope you didn't. Kite Gamer, anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
I mean, I guess the only thing I'll say is more people should have brought Jin. The Jin team won, and then we don't have to say mid-range so much.
That is true. That is true. We want to see a lot of Jin. The issue is, man, like, you know, the broken card that you have on the screen right now is not in Jin. So, like, they can't really... They don't... They're clueless. They are clueless.
Waiting for our 33 cards 30 through 33.
Yeah. But yeah, that'll be all for this week, guys. I believe Craig Gamer is going to be joining you all again next week around this time to broadcast the second week of the regular season, which is also going to be the final week. I won't be here. I don't know who's going to be here instead of me, but I'll be catching you guys again in the playoff season. So looking forward to that. Otherwise, from me and Craig Gamer, good night, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Take care.